Story 1. Best friend cheated on her boyfriend and kept it a secret, and refuses to come clean about her baby trap. Olivia and I have been best friends since the summer before freshman year of college. Our personalities are very different. She's outgoing and people-oriented, while I'm more bookish and introverted. But we've always had a great dynamic and mutual respect for one another. We've lived together since our sophomore year of college, which has been mostly fine except for two issues: her bringing guys over all the time and her on-again, off-again relationship with a guy named Nathan. Nathan was in my major, and he instantly hit it off with Olivia the first time I introduced them to one another. The two began dating halfway through her freshman year. Since we're in the same major, I started becoming good friends with Nathan as well. He's charming and intelligent, and Olivia's mother greatly approved of the relationship since he's also Korean. But Olivia herself often told me that she felt bored in the relationship and that he was too clingy and controlling. They broke up for the first time after a year of dating, after which Olivia went through what can only be described as a wild phase. She was skipping classes, partying nearly every night, bringing guys home, the works. Nathan was heartbroken by the breakup, and I didn't want to make him feel even worse, so I didn't tell him about Olivia's behavior. After a semester of recklessness and almost failing out of school, Olivia started to cool her heels and, in her words, yearned for the stability of a relationship again. She and Nathan started talking again and eventually rekindled their relationship by the start of junior year. This is how their relationship has played out for the past 6 years. They start out fine, Olivia gets bored, they break up, Olivia goes wild for a bit, Nathan casually dates for a while, Olivia gets bored and comes crawling back to Nathan, they get back together. I love Olivia like a sister, but her behavior over the years to Nathan has really pissed me off, and I can't understand why he goes back to her. But they're adults. All I can do is be there for them and try not to mention Olivia to Nathan or vice versa when we're hanging out during their periods apart. Early last year, however, Olivia told me that she doesn't find partying and sleeping around as enjoyable as she once did, and that she wanted to settle down with Nathan for good. I was happy to hear this, as Nathan had confided in me that despite having other girlfriends while he and Olivia were split, he's only really ever loved her. They began dating once again, but they seemed different this time. Olivia was much more subdued and sensitive to Nathan's feelings, and Nathan took care to give Olivia her space. All seemed well. Early last November, I went on a weekend-long trip with my boyfriend, which unfortunately ended early when he had to head back to work. I had told Olivia that she had the place to herself for the weekend, but I was too tired and disappointed after my trip was canceled to tell her I was coming back. I slipped in at around 7 p.m. before she came back from wherever she was and fell asleep. I awoke at some ungodly hour to certain noises between Olivia and who I presumed at the time to be Nathan. I made a mental note to scold them in the morning for being gross and went back to sleep. I was in the kitchen at around 10 a.m. to make coffee and breakfast when Olivia's door opened and a male figure emerged. I was going to make a lame joke at Nathan's expense, but when I turned around, I saw not Nathan but some lanky redhead guy I'd never seen before. He seemed embarrassed and hurried into the bathroom, and I went to confront Olivia. She told me that she and Nathan had an open relationship and he was fine with her bringing guys home sometimes. Considering that an open relationship is most certainly not Nathan's style and he never mentioned it to me before, I called her a liar. To which she responded that they didn't have to tell me every detail about their relationship and I was creepy for asking. She said it with such confidence that I think even she believed it at the time. Every fiber in my body was telling me not to trust her on this. But she and Nathan seemed so happy and their sex life is definitely not my business, so I let it slide. She had done some awful things to him over the years, but cheating was not one of them. Nathan and I hung out one-on-one a few times after that, but I never got the courage to ask him if the open relationship claim was true. Olivia had been on edge the past few weeks leading up to Christmas and wouldn't tell me why. Before we left to celebrate the holidays with our families, eventually the day after Christmas, she texted me that I was going to have to find a new roommate since she and Nathan were moving in together. I was happy for them, but a bit surprised by how sudden it was. I was going to text Nathan to congratulate him, but he called me first. He sounded over the moon. Said that right before Christmas, Olivia had revealed to him that she was 6 to 8 weeks pregnant. While he was telling me about how he planned to propose to her on New Year's and where he wanted their wedding to be, my heart sunk. There was no way they were in an official open relationship. He had no idea about the redhead guy or any other guy she might have brought over. She was cheating on him. After my call with Nathan ended, I called Olivia and told her to meet me at our apartment ASAP since we needed to talk. We met up on the 29th and got into what must have been a 6-hour screaming match. At some point during the fight, she admitted that Nathan didn't know about her sleeping around, but it was okay since she was always careful and was completely sure the baby is his since redhead definitely wore a condom. I swear I told her she was full of shit and needed to confess to him right away, but she refused. She said how this was finally her and Nathan's chance to be happy, and she didn't want to spoil anything for him. Yeah, I'm sure that's the reason. She told me that if I ratted her out to Nathan, she'd paint me as a crazy attention seeker trying to ruin a new family since I, 1, was having trouble with my boyfriend, 2, had no proof of the redhead guy, and 3, had always been jealous of Olivia since Nathan noticed her first, which is something I felt 6 years ago and got over completely. She got so vicious and irrational, I had to leave and stay in a hotel for the night. At some point, she went back to Nathan's place and, as planned, he proposed on New Year's. I know it seems obvious what I should do, but I can't seem to summon the courage to tell Nathan. I've been holed up in my now lonely apartment, blowing through my vacation days, trying to decide what to do. I've never seen Nathan so happy before, and there is a chance that the baby is his, but of course, there's a chance that it isn't. Olivia plans to try and completely destroy my and Nathan's friendship if the truth comes out, and he's in such a state right now that I honestly think he'd go along with her. I know I want to tell him, but I am unsure of how to do that without it backfiring. Edit. I'm meeting with him this Sunday to tell him. Olivia doesn't know. We'll update you all on how it goes. More info? Olivia is Korean, so I don't think red hair is possible for the baby. I could anonymously tell Nathan to get a DNA test before the wedding, but only I and redhead guy know about the cheating, and he doesn't know about the pregnancy, so if Nathan asks, I'm the only source. I wish there was a way for me to contact redhead guy and let him tell and save me a boatload of trouble, but I have no idea where to even start looking. Now, I doubt she'd agree to come and talk with me again, though, but if she does, I'll be recording. I want Nathan to know, I just want him to actually believe me. I may be his good friend, but a fiancé/soon-to-be mother of his child takes precedence. Anyway, I made up my mind and thought about how I would approach the subject. I'm meeting with him on Sunday, wish me luck. Update 1. Pregnant best friend/roommate, 24F, cheated on her longtime BF, my friend 25M, and I, 24F, don't know what to do. First of all, thank you, everyone, for the advice. I was so unsure of how I was going to go about telling Nathan, but it was definitely his right to know. So, last week, I told Nathan to meet me on Sunday to discuss a surprise for Olivia and that he shouldn't tell her about the meeting. He asked if we had a fight since she seemed mad at me, and I said that it was just a minor spat over rent. My stomach was in knots over the whole thing, so on Thursday, I went out with some friends, Pat and Marie, Olivia's other close friend, for drinks. I didn't tell them about the whole business with Nathan and Olivia since they are her friends as well. As we were talking and drinking that night, Pat mentioned that she saw Olivia's new engaged status on Facebook and how she was so excited about the wedding. Marie said she saw it too and was surprised since she thought they weren't together and since Olivia had seemed so into Robert a while ago. Immediately after she said this, she seemed to realize that she had said something she shouldn't have, but I pressed on. She revealed that Robert was Olivia's former coworker from a coffee shop job she briefly had that she had been seeing on and off for the past year. When I asked what Robert looked like, the first thing she said was, "He has red hair." I took her aside and told her that I needed to contact Robert ASAP but couldn't tell her why. I'm sure she could put 2 and 2 together, but she told me where he still worked, or at least was working up until a few months ago, and a rough estimate of where his apartment was. After some sleuthing around, thankfully, he still worked at the coffee shop Marie mentioned. I was able to get in contact with Robert early Saturday and explain the situation to him. I told him that Olivia was pregnant and it could possibly be his kid. She has a fiancé she is lying to, and that I wanted him to sit down with me when I told her fiancé, Nathan. At first, he refused and almost slammed the door in my face, but I was able to convince him that Nathan wouldn't attack him or hold him responsible for the cheating. To Robert's credit, he didn't know Olivia was with Nathan at the time. She told him that she and Nathan weren't serious and said that he would try to be a part of his child's life if he or she actually were his. Apparently, he and Olivia had been FWB, and he liked her, but 2 months ago, a little after I caught them, she told him never to call her again. Anyway, on Sunday, I met Nathan in my apartment with Robert. At first, Nathan refused to believe us and said we were just trying to break him and Olivia apart and that Robert probably was just a scorned ex. There was some shouting involved, and Nathan broke one of my chairs by throwing it, but he eventually believed us. He said he knew I wouldn't lie to him about something like this and that he always suspected something was up but was too in love with Olivia to press the issue. He wanted to seem tough, but I could see his heart was absolutely broken. Robert contacted Olivia and told her he knew what was up. She came to meet us at my apartment, thinking she'd only see me and Robert, but immediately became hysterical upon seeing Nathan was there too. She started saying that Robert and I were setting her up, we were trying to kill her and the baby by stressing her out, and other absolutely mental BS like that. Nathan was surprisingly calm with her, and he took her back to his apartment to discuss their engagement and the baby privately. And finally, yesterday, Nathan told me what happened between them. Olivia eventually fessed up and said that she was only with Nathan because he was stable and had a good job, but he was boring and she wasn't satisfied. He broke off the engagement and demanded a paternity test on the child, saying that he would raise her himself if he's the father since Olivia is obviously not capable. Olivia stormed out and claimed she was going to terminate, but whether or not she'll actually get one is currently unknown. She is apparently staying in her mother's house currently. Nathan plans to use up his vacation days to take a long break so he can mentally recoup, and I'm giving him his space. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Parents tried to screw over my amazing stepmom who was dying. Then, I caught my dad cheating with my biological mom to get her inheritance money, so I told my stepmom and she cut them off. My 17F stepmother, Jane, is a wonderful, wonderful woman. She and my father got married when I was 4, and she's been a rock in my life ever since. My mother was always my primary caregiver, but up until that point, her relationship with my father was acrimonious, and I basically never saw him. Jane was the reason they developed a stable co-parenting relationship. She encouraged everyone having a good relationship with each other, and was always there to support me and my mom when things got rough. Jane was always a really hard worker. When she met my dad, he was living out of a hotel, and my mother was doing everything in her power to keep me away from him because she was petty and angry that their relationship didn't work out. Meanwhile, Jane had a great job, a nice house, helped my dad get back on his feet, negotiated a visitation schedule with my mom, who hated her for a long time, and made sure my dad sent us money every week because neither one of them could afford an attorney to negotiate child support payments. Jane had no reason to do any of these things, but as I got older, she made it clear that she loved me as much as she loved my half-brothers, who were born a few years later. I even have my own room in her house because of the time we lived with my grandparents, various boyfriends of my mom, and Jane felt that I needed a more stable environment than that. She's like the opposite of the evil stepmom. When I was 15, Jane won a big lawsuit against an airline company and got awarded upwards of $1 million. She used the money to build sizable trust funds for me and my brothers so that we would be taken care of later in life. Despite having a lot more money, she still wanted to live a fairly modest life, so she paid off the house she has and has been living there ever since with my dad. Sure, she bought a new car and they went on a few nice vacations, but she didn't blow all her money on stupid things, which I respected. About a year ago, things started getting really weird. Whenever I saw Jane, she seemed to look sicker and sicker, but no one would tell me or my brothers why, even though I know they knew. All we knew is that she was at the hospital a lot. Around the same time, my mom has been coming around my dad a lot more and acting really strange, basically like she was trying to romance him. Whenever Jane was in the hospital, my mother would insist on spending the night at their house and playing mom to my brothers, which was so weird to me because she never liked them or Jane. She'd be the perfect little housewife, and my mom is not like that at all. It was super fake. Worst of all, my dad started falling for it. I'm not stupid. I'm pretty sure they were sleeping together. I tried to shield my brothers from it, but they're not dumb either. I tried talking to my dad too, but he insisted it wasn't like that. Then, a few weeks ago, my mom started talking about all the places she'd like to visit, how she wanted a new car, and was looking to invest, which is weird because my mom has been a bartender her whole life and has lived paycheck to paycheck since before I was born. She was acting like she was about to get a lot of money, which started to make me really suspicious. Between Jane being sick and my mom acting all nouveau riche, I had a lot of questions. Finally, I decided to visit Jane in the hospital and ask her about my trust fund. I found out that if anything happened to her, my dad would inherit all the money, including full control of the trust for me and my brothers. She asked me why I was so interested in the trust fund, so I told her what's going on with my parents and how my mom has been acting with my dad. I didn't want to, but after everything she did for me, she deserved the truth. It really hurt me to break her heart like that, especially once I found out that she was basically in hospice at this point because of irreversible kidney failure. She's only got a few more months. We both cried so much. Then, 2 days ago, everything came to a head. My mom stormed in, furious, and started arguing with my dad. Apparently, Jane met with her lawyer and changed the trust so that my dad would get nothing, and all of the trust would be controlled by my stepsister. She demanded to know how Jane found out about their relationship, and I came out and told them that I told Jane everything. I told them that if they wanted to play stupid games, they would win stupid prizes and that I wasn't going to let them screw Jane over after all the help she gave my family when she didn't have to. My mom slapped me and my dad just looked so defeated. Then my mom told my dad that she didn't really love him, that she was just pretending to so he would marry her and she could get all of the money. The worst part about it is that my brothers witnessed the whole thing, and now, on top of their mom dying, they have to deal with a cheating dad and his vindictive ex. Our whole family is in ruins, and I feel like it's my fault, even though I know it's not. Yesterday, I visited Jane again and told her about the fallout. She apologized and said that she had to dissolve my trust fund to make sure my mother didn't get a hold of the money, but that as her oldest, I will inherit the house/property after she is gone, and that's worth more than the other 2 trust funds combined. My father won't get anything because she's going to divorce him before she dies, and honestly, I'm happy for her. She made me promise to take care of my brothers and told me that once I turn 18 this summer, I can kick my dad out of the house if I want to, and I fully plan to do that. By the way, I haven't talked to my dad since, and I can't even look at my mom. I can't believe they would conspire to do this to Jane after all this time. Just proof that they deserve each other, and I'm embarrassed that they're my parents. Once I turn 18, I'm gonna cut my dad out as much as I can and cut my mom out completely. I hope she rots. Meanwhile, I'm going to try and be at the hospital as much as I can until Jane passes away. Anyways, I just needed to vent. I'm really messed up about the whole thing, and I feel super betrayed, although I can't even begin to imagine how Jane feels. I'm gonna be so effed up when she dies. I can't even think about that right now, but at least she's not surrounded by people who just want to bring her down. Thanks for reading. Edit. Some people are asking a lot of the same stuff, so I'll just clarify here. My brothers. My plan is to use some of the estate money to fight for guardianship for my twin brothers so that they can live in the house while I kick my dad out. If I can't get guardianship, then I will have to let my dad stay in the house. However, once I turn 18, I will technically be an adult, so even if my dad leaves, I'm still legally able to be responsible for them. The only thing I won't be able to do is stop him from taking them if he leaves, but they will be 18 in 6 years, so even if they do have to leave, they will always be able to come back whenever they want. In a perfect world, my dad would just leave and let my brothers stay with me, which I'm sure my bio mom would be very supportive of because right now she hates all of us and I doubt that will change anytime soon. The trust. From what I understand, my brothers will inherit 1/3 each of the estate, and the remaining 1/3 will be used to keep the house running until they turn 18. After that, it will be up to me if I want to keep the house or sell it. At that point, my brothers will still have money left in the trust so they can branch out or do whatever they want. Otherwise, I will not sell the house and just pass it on to them or keep it and maintain it myself, and they can just stay with me as long as they need to. Edit to the edit. So I just spoke to Jane, and she told me that the reason she dissolved the trust is because originally it was going to be split 3x between us kids and my dad would inherit the house. She dissolved my third and switched it over to make it to take care of the house maintenance and instead put the house in my name so my dad wouldn't get it. Plus, by doing that, at least financially, I would be getting a much bigger share. The house is worth about 1.5x the amount of my brother's trusts. I just wouldn't be able to do anything with it until my brothers are 18, which I'm totally cool with. Sorry if I don't have a better answer, but I'm just trying to translate what she told me. My parents. The big fight happened on Sunday, and I haven't spoken to either of my parents since. I think they're both at my mom's place right now, but that's fine with us because we're all still mad at them, so they can stay gone for all we care. I know technically that's not legal to just leave us alone, but I've been taking care of my brothers for over a year. I can handle a few days while he gets his shit together. Screw both of them. Hope that clears some stuff up. Additional info. OP. Why isn't Jane on dialysis? I don't remember the exact details, but Jane has a genetic condition where she gets cysts on her kidney. She already had a transplant a few years ago, but now she developed problems with her arteries or something in her legs, so she doesn't qualify for dialysis. She could get another transplant, but she doesn't want to because the last time was so traumatic, rejections, etc. So she decided to just let herself go on to maintenance medications to prolong her death until she gets her affairs in order. She has a few other health problems that make the typical treatments really dangerous, and according to her, she'd rather die surrounded by loved ones than on an operating table. Dissolving the trust fund. Jane told me she didn't technically have to do it, but she didn't trust my bio parents not to do something shady and get a hold of the money before I turn 18. Even if my aunt controlled the fund, my dad would still be able to collect if something happened to Jane before I turned 18. Her lawyer suggested it's better safe than sorry, and I agreed that it was the best option. I'm not an expert, though. I don't know the details. How my mom knew. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure Jane told my dad, who then told my mom, and that's how the argument started. I can't think of any other way, and I didn't really care enough to ask. Jane's thoughts on my mom. She didn't know my mom was doing all of that. My mom has her own place and would only come over whenever Jane was in the hospital for a few days at a time. I've been living with my dad for a little over a year, so he probably told Jane that my mom was there to spend time with me, if he told her at all. Besides, she didn't move in until a few months ago, which I guess is when they started hatching their plan. Jane never outright banned my mom from visiting, so there really wasn't anything she could do. Hope that helps. Edit for the last part. The remainder of the money belonging to the estate that hasn't been put into trust for my brothers is going to be used to maintain the house, utilities, taxes, etc., until my brothers are 18, and then I can either choose to sell the house or keep it and maintain it myself if I'm able to. I plan to go to school in that time and get a better job with the goal of keeping the house, but if I can't, then I have the option to sell it. Not that I will, but that's how it was explained to me. OP on her stepmom and their relationship provides thoughts on her bio mom. Honestly, it's because she's more of a real mom than my actual mom. My bio mom is kind of ambiguous about my existence, but Jane was always extra involved, sending me to sports teams and paying for dance classes, and just showing interest in my hobbies as I got older. Plus, as the only girl, I think we bonded on a level she can't with my brothers, so she always made sure to let me know I was on equal terms with them. When I was younger, we would watch movies and have girl time, where it was just us one-to-one. And those are some of my best memories with her. Jane is also really mature and someone I want to be like when I get older, whereas it feels like my mom is a teenager in an adult's body. She was constantly picking fights with my dad about dumb things, and Jane was always there to smooth things over and keep my best interest at heart over her own feelings. I know my mom made Jane's life really difficult for a long time, but Jane never complained or said anything to me about it, whereas my mom constantly complained about Jane. As I got older, I just always felt more at peace when I was around Jane than when I was around my mom. If you want your stepkids to love you, just be there for them and treat them like your own. Ignore whatever drama you have with your husband's ex and just love your kids. Trust me, if you really care about them, they will know. Comments where OP has replied. Comment. My only advice is to make sure you work with a lawyer once she passes so you get your inheritance and your parents can't try to intervene, and then you keep your promise to use that money for you and your brother's welfare. P.O. Absolutely. Jane already gave me the lawyer's info, and between him and my step-aunt, I'm sure I will be able to do what I need to do for them. I don't even care about the money. Most people don't have trust funds and turn out just fine. I'm actually more glad that she gave me the house because you can be damn sure it's going to be a safe space for my brothers whether I end up getting custody of them or not. My brothers are basically Jane's legacy, so my goal is to give them the life and guidance that I got from her and that they won't get because she'll be gone. OP on the relationship between her, her father, and her stepmom before they got exposed. Honestly, it hurts a lot because before Jane got sick, they seemed to have the perfect relationship until my birth giver like that came in and fucked everything up with her toxic personality. Honestly, in a perfect world, my mom will end up broken, alone, and in a shitty nursing home with bed sores, and when she calls me and begs me for a relationship because she needs the attention, it'll feel so good to hang up on her over and over again. OP on Jane, stepmom, S health, and if Jane is mentally okay on the whole situation. I think so. Apparently, it's a genetic disease, so she always knew she was going to get sick. She just didn't know when, so mentally, I think she was prepared for it. I just hope that she can find peace knowing the truth and knowing that I'll be there to make sure her sons don't grow up all fucked up. Update May 8, 2024. Please check my profile for my previous post. Smile. Hi guys, it's me again. A lot of you asked me for an update on my situation with Jane and my family, so I've come back with a few things that have happened since I initially posted. I will try to organize this in a way that addresses the major points of last time. Jane is still alive and doing surprisingly well considering the circumstances. She's always been a fighter, and although her disease has been progressing, she's keeping a positive attitude with everything that is going on. She says she's grateful that she was able to see everyone's true colors before she passed, so she could go into the next life knowing the truth. We have become so unbelievably close in the past few months, and it's getting harder and harder to know that she's getting close to the end. She doesn't ever talk about it, though, and I know it's because she doesn't want to hurt me, but we both know the situation, so we're just making the best of our time. I'm also not being completely transparent about all of the drama at home, but to be honest, I don't think she needs to hear all of that. We did end up having that surprise celebration of life that I planned. A lot more people showed up than I thought, but they all got an Airbnb near the hospital where Jane is, and we were able to take her out and spend some time at the lake near the facility. It was super low-key, which I know Jane preferred, and I was even able to get her old college friend to come after I found him on LinkedIn, lol. We had food and there was music and we played games, and it was overall a really great time except Jane started crying at the end, but she promised me it was just because she was grateful. My brothers are also doing okay. My aunt, Jane's sister, is currently paying for them to go to therapy, and they've become a lot more open about talking about the situation. They just turned 13, but a lot of the time it feels like I'm talking to actual adults, lol. They've become really independent lately in a good way, and aside from me driving them places, I don't really have to do much for them anymore. Their grades aren't super great, but they're not failing, and considering the circumstances, it could be a lot worse. They still hang out with friends, and I'm keeping an eye out for like depression symptoms and stuff. The situation with my mom is as funny as it is embarrassing, to be honest. She spent a few weeks ignoring us, and then she tried to crawl back into my life, basically begging me to let her move in because her lease is about to expire and she has nowhere to go. That convo went about as well as you'd think, and she ended up calling me an ungrateful bitch and that I couldn't just ignore her because she's my mom. I told her to get out of the house before I called the cops and to go back to my dad, who at that point was only coming home every few days to check on us and grab some clothes. After that, she tried coming by a few times, and when I wouldn't open the door, she would lose her mind and start yelling through the neighborhood. After 3 instances of this, I finally called the cops, but because I'm 17, they told me there's a possibility that I would have to go home with her since technically I'm a minor and need to be with the custodial parent. I told them no way because I was the only one watching my brothers at the moment. That led to a whole thing where after a few hours, my dad basically showed up and I was allowed to stay there because there was finally an adult present and I'd basically lived there for over a year. After that, the cops firmly told my mom that if she keeps showing up and causing drama, my neighbors confirmed that she'd been there a few times screaming, that they would arrest her for trespassing since technically it was Jane's house and not hers. She left and hasn't tried coming to the house anymore, but for a while, she would call me constantly, telling me I owed her and all kinds of stuff. She's now blocked on everything, and anything she needs to say to me gets filtered through my dad. As for my dad, well, since he's basically required to be here for another 2 months until I turn 18, we basically just avoided each other. It's not too bad, though, because I've been heavily relying on guilting him for everything to get my way. For example, he was going to contest the divorce, but I threatened to kick him out when I turn 18 if he does that. So he just signed all the paperwork for a quickie divorce and is basically doing whatever Jane tells him to do. I don't openly disrespect him or anything. He's still my dad. But I've made it clear that I have no intentions on doing anything he says ever again, and he doesn't fight me on it. Most of the time, he's just in his room, and sometimes he'll go back to my mom's, but only for a day or two before they argue and she kicks him out again. Oh, I haven't decided whether or not I'll kick him out yet, and we haven't talked about it either, so I'm kind of playing it by ear. As for me, I'm handling everything as good as I can. I found a new job where I make a little more money, so I've been focusing on saving as much as I can and just being there for my brothers. Between working in school and visiting Jane, I've been so busy I haven't really had time to really stop and think about everything, but I know it'll come. One of my friends has really stepped up and helped me manage everything, and I'm super grateful to him for being there for me and my brothers, so we'll see how that goes. Anyways, I wish I had something more exciting to share, but that's what's happened since my last post. Smile. Thanks again for all the support on my last post. Comments. OP on the possibility of her stepmom being poisoned from her parents to get Jane's money. Hi there, a few people have mentioned this, and yes, we are absolutely certain she is not being poisoned. It's a genetic disease causing her kidney failure, and we have known about it for a long time, but she shielded us from the worst of it. Hence why her sudden decline in health was such a shock to us. We thought she had more time. My brothers have also been screened for this disease, and thankfully, neither of them have it. Edit to add. I'm turning 18 in a few weeks, so I don't need to get emancipated. And my dad has already agreed that my brothers will stay in the house with me because they have nowhere else to go. OP on Jane making video clips for her brothers. Yes, actually, a few people suggested this on my last post, and we've been doing this for a few weeks now. Jane has a little digital recorder that she's been putting her thoughts down on, and she's also written a few letters to us for major milestones. My brothers do not know about this as we want to surprise them, but that said, they have been coming to the hospital more now that they're in therapy and able to deal with it. I know they do not want to have any regrets even though it's a difficult situation. OP on her father after being exposed and her biomom trying to manipulate him. I do think he's remorseful. He hasn't said it, but the way he's acting is telling me that he's being really passive when normally he gets a little belligerent if he really feels like he didn't do anything wrong. Also, I know I have every reason to kick him out, but he's still my dad. Even though what he did to Jane was terrible, he's just kind of a weak-minded person, and my biomom really manipulated the crap out of him and continues to manipulate him, but I can tell he's getting tired of her bullshit because he's spending less time with her. He didn't know she was showing up at the house, and when he found out, he was super pissed at her. They've been fighting non-stop, and I can tell he's not as much under her spell anymore because he's at home more, but who knows? Now on to the next story. Story 3. Boyfriend got angry and broke my things when I refused to skip being a bridesmaid at my sister's wedding because I'd have to walk down the aisle with my ex. Hello? I'm in a tough situation and need an outside perspective beyond my friends and family. Using fake names and a throwaway for privacy. I'll try to keep this short. I, 26F, have been with my boyfriend, Tommy, 27M, for 11 months. He's a really caring guy and has always treated me well. Like any couple, we've had small disagreements, but nothing major until now. For context, my older sister, Kimmy, 31F, is getting married to her fiancé, Gray, 23M, in 3 months. Gray happens to be the cousin of my ex-boyfriend, Levi, 26M. Levi and I dated from freshman year of high school through college until I broke up with him 2 years ago. He had developed feelings for his now girlfriend, Tammy, 24F, whom he met in college. The breakup was mutual, and there are no hard feelings. We're on good terms. I've known Levi since I was 6, and we were best friends growing up, sharing the same friend group. Because of that, I spent a lot of time at his house, and his family became like a second family to me. Even after our breakup, his parents, 2 older sisters, and extended family continued inviting me to family events. I attended a few, but once Levi told me that Tammy felt uncomfortable with my presence, I started going less out of respect. This was before I started dating Tommy. Kimmy kept going to family events since she was with Gray. That said, I still occasionally see Levi at small parties hosted by my best friend, May 25F. She and her boyfriend, Hunter 26M, are still close with Levi, so he's sometimes there. We don't really interact much at these events. Tommy has met Levi at these gatherings and has even spoken with him a few times. He never mentioned having an issue with it. Now, on to the problem. Kimmy and Gray's wedding is a small, intimate event with only close friends and family. I'm a bridesmaid, and Levi is a groomsman, which means we're paired up to walk down the aisle together. I was initially a bit uncomfortable with it, but I love my sister and want to support her, so I put my feelings aside. Levi's girlfriend, Tammy, is invited, and she's totally fine with everything, as the most interaction Levi and I will have is walking together for a few seconds. But Tommy is furious. He now refuses to attend the wedding and has given me an ultimatum. Either I step down as a bridesmaid and attend only as a guest, or not go at all. I of course told him no. This is my sister's wedding, and I want to be there for her. It's not my fault her fiancé is related to Levi. Tommy lost it. He shouted at me, called me horrible names, accused me of wanting to cheat on him with Levi, then broke some of my things before storming out. He's now staying at a friend's place and refuses to see or talk to me. I've never seen him this angry before. I have never given him any reason to think I'd cheat on him, and Levi and I don't go out of our way to talk to each other, so I have no idea where this is coming from. After talking to May and my friends about it, we got back to Levi, and he actually offered to step down as a groomsman to avoid drama. I told him not to do that. My family now knows what happened because Levi told Gray, and my parents are furious. Kimmy is disgusted by how Tommy treated me. They don't want him at the wedding anymore. I've tried reaching out to Tommy, but his friend texted me that he doesn't want to see me. I'm honestly worried about him because this reaction is completely out of character. He's always been a great boyfriend, but this whole situation is making me question things. So, am I the jerk? My friends and family say I'm not, but I need an outsider's perspective. Edit. Thank you everyone for opening my eyes. I'm gonna ditch Tommy and pack his things. I will be contacting his friend he is staying with to fetch most of his things. Again, thank you. Edit 2. This is my last edit. A lot of people are asking why I couldn't be paired with someone else. My sister and her fiancé chose the pairings based on what felt most comfortable for everyone. Since Levi and I already know each other well and are on good terms, they thought it would be the least awkward option. It wasn't done to cause drama, just to make things easier for the bridal party. I know Levi and I have a long history together. We've been through a lot. I still care for him from a distance, but our relationship truly began to break down after we lost our son, who was stillborn. We were young, and while we stayed together for a few more years, things were never the same. Eventually, Levi developed feelings for someone else, his current girlfriend, and he was honest with me about it before pursuing her. We ended things on mutual terms because in that moment, I realized I no longer felt the same way either. We simply fell out of love. It happens. Update. I packed up most of Tommy's things and texted his friend to come pick them up. I gave him 2 days to grab his stuff out of my home. He came the next day. When he arrived, he came inside alone while his friend waited in the car. My dad and older cousin were with me just in case. I know some of you might not be happy about this, but Tommy and I ended up having a serious talk after he finished loading his things into the truck. My dad and cousin stayed in the living room while we spoke privately in my room. I needed closure, we both did. Tommy apologized. He said he was sorry for yelling, calling me names, and breaking my things. He also offered to pay for the damages, but I told him no. At this point, replacing my things wouldn't fix what had already been broken. He said he wanted to work things out and start over, but I immediately rejected the idea. I have little to no trust in him now, and for me, once trust is gone, the relationship is gone. I asked him why he suddenly had such a problem with Levi when he never did before, even when we attended family events and friend gatherings together. That's when he admitted something I hadn't known. He had gone through my closet. My closet is packed with a lot of personal things. He was looking for something and came across a small flowery chest where I keep special memories, photo albums, letters, and small gifts from family, friends, and past experiences. Curious, he decided to look through it. Inside, he found letters Levi had written me, gift cards from family and friends, and a few drawings Levi had made for me. Then he found my 2 photo albums. One was filled with childhood pictures of my family, friends, and Levi from when we were kids all the way through high school graduation and college. The second album was handmade. Levi's older sister had made it for us, and Levi had gifted it to me. It was a green polka dot album with a heart and the letter L on the cover, L for Levi. This album held some of my most personal and meaningful pictures of us as kids, in high school, and as adults. There was one photo that Tommy had found. It was a picture from when I was pregnant with Levi and my son. We were at Levi's uncle's family cabin. Levi was holding me from behind, his arms wrapped under my belly, kissing my cheek while I had one hand on his cheek and the other on my stomach. My eyes were squinting, and I was smiling really hard. Tommy told me that image has been stuck in his head ever since. He admitted he went through my things 8 months into our relationship and never told me. He said that after seeing that photo, he felt like he could never compete with what I had with Levi, that no matter what he did, I would never love him as much. He said he never felt this way with his 2 ex-girlfriends before, but with me it was different. He felt like I had already given all my love to someone else. He said he noticed the little things, that when he gave me gifts I didn't seem as excited. When he brought me flowers or a gift card, I would just say thank you, put them on the counter and move on. Unlike Levi's gifts, which I kept in a special box, his didn't seem to hold the same meaning to me. He even found one of the cards he gave me in the kitchen trash bin. I felt absolutely terrible when he said that. I never meant to make him feel that way. I never threw away anything he gave me. Everything he gifted me was in my nightstand drawer. Sure, it wasn't in a memory box like Levi's things, but that didn't mean I didn't care. I loved to grab and read them sometimes from the nightstand. Then he said something that really hurt me. He told me that seeing me pregnant in that photo made him uncomfortable, that it felt weird, and that he didn't like it. I didn't even understand what he meant, but hearing him say that truly hurt. At that point, I broke down crying. He had been holding in all these feelings, all this resentment, and instead of ever talking to me about it, he let it all bottle up until it exploded over the bridesmaid situation. I wish he had told me earlier instead of letting things get to this point, because despite everything, I did love him. I told him that I still love him, but that he crossed a personal boundary by going through my things without my knowledge or consent. That memory box is deeply personal to me, and it hurt knowing he invaded that space. We had nothing else to talk about. He just got up and told me, "Good luck to the next guy. He's going to need it, especially having to deal with you." That stung. I had been nothing but grateful for him, but in the end, that is what he left me with. I cried so much. At first, I was just angry with him, but in the end, it was crushing to go through another heartbreak. My dad and cousin stayed with me that night, and I was grateful not to be alone. Right now, I'm planning on focusing on myself. I don't plan on dating for a long time because I want to heal and work on my own happiness first. One day, I'd love to be with a man who wants a big family and lots of kids with me, but that's not my focus right now. My priority is to keep enjoying my life, continue working at my job I love. I've planned on going out with my friends a lot more and spending quality time with the people who truly care about me. I've also been planning to spend more time with my family. I've been calling my friends, and that has really helped me feel supported. I also talked to Levi, and he actually came over by surprise to check on me. He brought me chocolate-covered strawberries, my favorite, and his girlfriend even crocheted me a little gecko that looks like my pet gecko, my favorite animal. It was such a sweet gesture that I actually cried. We ended up talking for hours, playing my old GameCube, especially Mario Kart Double Dash, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and Digimon World 4, just reconnecting like when we were kids. There were definitely some tears, but also hugs, and we promised to be there for each other more. That made me really happy. No, nothing happened between us. Levi actually plans to propose to Tammy in the near future. He seems so much happier with her than he ever was with me during our relationship. I've never seen him blossom with anyone the way he has with her. He's also way more affectionate with her than he ever was with me. I truly hope they get married and build a beautiful life and family together. They both deserve it. And good news, My best friend May and I are also planning a fun trip out of state in early June, probably to Idaho for a week, as we live in Maine. And we are planning a bigger friend group trip. We're still figuring out when and where since some of our friends live out of state and we need to find a good schedule. I am planning on moving out of my apartment soon, most likely after my lease is done. I am going to be talking to Levi's uncle and moving into one of his small properties with two of our close friends for a fresh start. So, for the first time in a while, I feel like I have something to look forward to. I'm excited to focus on myself, enjoy my sister and Bill's wedding, and just live my life. Thank you all again, wishing you all a wonderful and lovely day. Edit. I'm not in love with Levi, despite what some people are saying. Just because I cherish a few things from the past doesn't mean I still have romantic feelings for him. In fact, I still have love for Tommy. It takes me a long time to fully lose feelings for someone, even if they've hurt me. I also really like Levi's girlfriend. She's incredibly kind. And to those claiming I'll hook up with Levi, please reevaluate yourselves. I don't chase after people in relationships, especially someone I no longer have feelings for. I'm not the type of person who sleeps around. I value emotional connection and building a meaningful bond before ever taking that step with someone. I have better standards than that. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My boyfriend unalived himself after I cheated and left him. At the suggestion of my therapist, I've decided to write out and share what has transpired in my life over the last year. To get this to make any coherent sense took lots of edits and a couple of rewrites. I used to be a fairly talented writer, but I fell out of practice years ago. This forum was recommended to me by a friend as a method of confession, penance, and a warning to share with others. I did something truly horrible for which the consequences were beyond even the worst thing I could have ever imagined. I am sharing this with the full knowledge many will despise me for what I did and the events that took place because of my betrayal. Reading my own words is revolting because I know, in a very real sense, what I did is unforgivable. I understand far too well how needlessly tragic the events that transpired truly were. My hope is simply that my story can be shared with anyone in any relationship, and perhaps some future betrayal won't happen. More specifically, I hope someone who is currently cheating on their significant other, or even thinking about it, might read this and it makes them pause. Many might think my example of what can go wrong when being unfaithful is an extreme rarity that seldom occurs. I've been told by people far more knowledgeable than I am that my situation is sadly far from unique, but I'm willing to take the hate I will receive by sharing this if it keeps even one person from breaking the heart of someone they love. I am a 28-year-old female, and I was married to a wonderful man I will call William. 8 months ago, my husband confronted me with proof I had been both emotionally and physically unfaithful. A few days after he confronted me about my infidelity, my husband committed unalived. I realized just typing those words out has caused people I don't even know, to hate me. I couldn't believe I had the capability to do something that evil, to harm someone I'd loved since we were children. But I did it. If you'd asked either me or William if either of us would ever be unfaithful, we both would have laughed. But to my own shock and surprise, I allowed myself to lose focus and stray. I knew it would destroy him if he ever found out, but I took the heart of the man I loved and crushed it so cruelly, he couldn't endure the pain of this life anymore. Those of you thinking right now that I don't deserve to be breathing, I agree with you. I agree with you so much I've attempted on 2 occasions to make that a reality. I'm assured there is a reason I'm still here. For the moment, I've convinced myself that the longer I live, the more I suffer, and I don't deserve the mercy of unalived. If we're being honest, William and I grew up together. I can remember my very early youth, and at no time in my memory did I not know William. We were in the same Sunday school classes, public school classes, and our families had been friends long before he and I ever came along. He could always make me laugh. Kids can be mean, but William never was. I realized I thought he was cute in 6th grade. It wasn't an official crush until high school. William and I had been our one and only loves from early high school all the way through college together. We were best friends and cherished each other so much. After graduation, we took a year to get good, stable jobs near our families and decided to get married. We took vacations together. We made love at any moment we got the chance. We were ravenous for each other. The only time intimacy was off the table was during that time of the month. But we'd make love for hours. Beautiful moments of passion. And I threw it all away for something so dirty, cheap, and worthless. We were planning to have children. We knew their names. We were both virgins. He was my first everything, and I was his first everything. Part of me wishes I could say I had a drunken one-night stand, tried to keep that from my husband, but he found out. No, I got emotionally and physically involved with a man who was inferior to my husband in every way, shape, and form. I didn't even consider the possibility that a friendship with another man could lead to an attachment forming. My husband and I had a strong marriage, as foolish as that sounds to say now, we really did. My husband was the epitome of strength. I was the one who was weak, though before this I considered myself a strong woman. It's just that no one ever told me that while our relationship was so very strong, no relationship is bulletproof. There is not a day that goes by that I don't wish someone had walked up and shot me the minute before anything I did became secretive. It is an indisputable fact the world would be a far, far better place with my husband here and alive instead of me. There is no rationalizing away truth like that. I had so many chances to stop it before anything happened, and I had absolutely no reason to allow anything to happen. After a brief and heated conversation, he walked out, and I never spoke to him again. I tried to contact him in any and every way I could think of. My God. I tried to reach out so many times just to let him know that I am truly sorry, just to know I hate what I did. My text to him never showed anything but an unread status to me, so I doubt he read any emails or heard any voicemails either. But everyone said I needed to give him space and time to think. 2 nights after William confronted me, at 3:17 a.m., there was a loud knock at the front door. I turned on the lights. I thought at first it might be someone in a drunken stupor wanting to curse me out or worse. Then there was another loud knock, and I threw on a hoodie before heading to the door. When I opened the door to see 2 policemen, I knew they could have been there for many things, but I knew in an instant why they were there. Their words telling me that my husband's body had been found due to an apparent unalived destroyed me. I dropped to my knees and wailed a shriek of agony. I tore at my skin and hair as the police tried to calm me down. By the time the EMTs got there, I was sitting on the steps rocking back and forth, repeating that I was so sorry. There was no way I was making it to the funeral, even if William's family had allowed any of my family to attend. I was kept sedated for days. The first thing I wanted to do when I got out was visit William's grave, but nobody knew where his parents had him buried. They had every right, but that cut deeply, and I tried to cut deeply that night when I tried to take my life for the first time. I've now been hospitalized twice for attempted unalived. Not asking for pity, in fact, I don't want it. Nothing can take this heartache away, and nothing can even numb it. Part of me wishes I had somehow forced him to see me, just for a mere moment, to tell him how sorry I am and that I knew our marriage was over. But I didn't get that. No, I didn't deserve it, and I have to face the fact that what I did was, in fact, so vile that making my husband see me might have forced him to take his life even sooner. Many people have said to me my actions were what led him to take his life. I don't think there is any doubt. Until that horrible day, he'd been so unbelievably happy. We both had been. He left no unalived note to verify I was his cause of death, but we had been so happy. We loved spending nearly every moment together. To go from that kind of bliss to that kind of grief in such a short span of time ended him. I ended him. My words, actions, and thoughts betrayed us both. Regret doesn't kill you. If it did, I would have died before my husband ever confronted me. When COVID hit, William and I quarantined together. I was fortunate enough to teach for an exclusive private school. The benefactors assured us our salary was paid as long as the need for isolation persisted. William worked from home and made a lot of progress on a project he was placed in charge of. The entire world was worried and afraid, but we had each other, and we so enjoyed making the most of it. Watching movies in bed, feeding each other food, playing like 2 little kids. I am utterly, truly, completely sorry to those that lost a loved one due to that horrible disease. What the world went through was a literal plague upon humanity that caused so much needless death. But my husband and I got closer in those weeks than we ever had before, and our bond had been strong. We joked about how so many people were hating having to spend time with family or, God forbid, their wife or husband. We simply couldn't get enough of each other. After the first month, we had to agree to limit intimacy to once a day for about a week. Our only argument the entire quarantine was about having to do laundry just to put clean sheets on the bed yet again. And I cheated on that man, which drove him to exit this life due to my evil actions. A man I had such a close bond with. I was an idiot in so many ways, but for me to think because of that bond no temptation was enough to get me to stray was idiocy. I hate myself in so many ways for so many reasons, but knowing I had it all is the most difficult pill to swallow. My affair was atypical of most in many ways. Some aspects of the relationship and betrayal were slightly less vile. Some were colder and even more evil. The man I had an affair with I will call Paul. I first encountered him in group Zoom meetings during the pandemic. I found him brash and smug, with no valid reason to act that way. He was the school's lacrosse coach, and I remember in those Zoom meetings being glad that as an English teacher, I would have to interact with him very little. The first time we met face-to-face, we shook hands and had some small talk. There was zero attraction, at least for me, toward him, but I didn't sense any lustful attention emanating from him toward me during that introduction. I learned he was engaged, and I told him I was happily married to a man I adored. No sexual tension, nothing even hinting that would ever be a possibility. The school began allowing half the staff in all areas and half the students to attend school for a week while the other half used Zoom. The next week the other half would attend on-site and vice versa. That was supposed to assist with social distancing and the students' feelings of isolation. While eating lunch one day, before my next class began, I got an email from Paul. He had written out some toasts and jokes for his upcoming wedding and wanted me to edit what he'd written. I was used to being sent writing to edit, so that was nothing I felt important enough to tell William, coupled with the fact it all pertained to Paul's wedding, and I saw no reason to give my husband a boring detail about that day. The email contained a toast to his parents as well as to the parents of the bride. I took what he'd said and added a few phrases to pull at the heartstrings of all who attended. The jokes directed at his brother, the best man, were absolutely hilarious but a little vulgar for my liking at a wedding. I said as much when I sent back his edited speeches. He laughed and said I just didn't know his family and that ball busting was a family tradition. That email exchange began several months of corresponding back and forth, but as difficult as it may be to believe, not until the very end did anything become inappropriate. Not once did anything become flirtatious or sexual. Well, we did talk about sex, but from a purely scientific and psychological point of view. Our sex talks at that point would have made the biggest nymphomaniac in history drier than the Sahara. There was nothing emotional or physically stimulating to those conversations, and I enjoyed our corresponding due to the fact I was certain there was no temptation on either end. We discussed race, politics, religion, science, sports, all the things people are hesitant to discuss due to differing opinions. Some of the discussions even got heated. I was called a prude more than once due to my opinions about sex. Yes, I proved him wrong, but I wish to God he'd been right. For the longest time, all of this took place during work hours. My husband and I had a landline for emergencies, but as soon as we entered the door at home, our smartphones were turned off. Paul didn't even have my number to text until I emailed him with a zinger at the end late in the day. He demanded my number to refute what I'd sent. Dozens of other coworkers had my email, and I thought nothing of that. I seriously don't think Paul had any interest in pursuing me either, as at the time he was smitten with his fiancée. But about a month before their big day, Paul found out his girlfriend had been carrying on an affair with her high school boyfriend for over a year. He was in shock and deeply hurt by the whole situation. I unwittingly became his person to vent to. I don't know where in our string of conversations that things crossed a line, but I began to feel truly sorry for Paul. I truly despised his fiancée for what she'd done, and I saw nothing wrong with that. But after a particularly rough night for him, he came to school looking frazzled, and I could tell he'd been crying. I gave him a hug and talked to him a bit. He asked if I could stay after school to talk. Since I had a couple of hours after work each day before William got home, I agreed. In hindsight, I realize now what drew me into my conversations with Paul was a different opinion. William and I had discussed most any topic two people could discuss. I knew before his reply what William would say when I asked him a question the vast majority of the time. I guess I wanted a surprise when I talked or verbal conflict. It was stupid, pathetic, and weak, but that is what led to the affair. Things with William were ideal, and we spent every available moment together. I had mentioned a coworker named Paul in passing to William, but as there was truly nothing going on, I didn't expound upon anything, and he saw no reason to pry. When Paul started seeing a new woman, I felt no jealousy, and honestly only happiness for him. But William had to go out of town to a construction site in Tulsa for 3 weeks. While he was away, we FaceTimed every day, and I missed him morning, noon, and night. But with sudden spare time, I found myself also texting with Paul just to pass the time. Instead of an occasional hour or two after school, Paul and I often had time to grab a bite to eat and a drink or two before heading to our separate homes. Oddly enough, the thing that led us to become physical was me being a klutz and the school nurse not working that week. I sprained my ankle one day walking up some steps to go get lunch. Since the nurse was not on site, I went to Paul, assuming he, as a coach, had numbing spray or an ace bandage. He was working on my ankle when I happened to notice he had an apparent erection. I was a bit taken aback he was getting aroused in some way until I realized from his position he could see slightly up my skirt. I have to admit for a moment I found the fact I was turning him on was stimulating in some way. I adjusted myself to see if a slightly better view would get him more worked up. He called me out on it. I laughed and told him he could work out his frustrations with his new girlfriend. Suddenly, he kissed me, and I pushed him away. He kissed me again and I didn't. We made out for a few minutes before I realized what I was doing. I hurriedly got out of his classroom and made it down the halls to my classroom. I sat in disbelief of what had just occurred. I didn't plan for it to happen, and I was certain Paul didn't either. I didn't know if I should call William and tell him that moment or wait until he got home that night. But when I talked to Paul after classes, he apologized, urged me not to bring any conflict into my marriage, and remain just friends. I didn't want to give William more to stress about as he was out of town and focused on his job assignment. After talking with William that night about how things were going in Tulsa, I decided to wait and tell him when he got home. His company was having some issues with the client having the manpower to keep the project running smoothly. There were things William could not get done due to the delays, which meant he had to spend 2 extra weeks in Tulsa. Paul was there for me to discuss what had happened between us. I couldn't tell any of my women friends. I couldn't rely on any family members, as they all rightfully loved William to pieces. I guess random strangers on a site like this would have been the best option had I known about it, but the person I was venting to was the very last person I should have been discussing it with. One Friday after work, Paul and I went to a new restaurant near the school for dinner. We sat at the bar and had a few drinks as I explained how unsettled I felt knowing I had to tell my husband what had happened. He asked me how I thought William would take the news, and I told Paul he might want to call in sick the day after I told William, just in case. He asked if I seriously thought William would beat his ass, and I told him no, but I knew it would mean the end of Paul and I conversing and messaging, and rightfully so. Paul confessed he didn't think he would have made it through his breakup if it hadn't been for me. I assured him I was glad to be of assistance and didn't regret helping him. When the realization our friendship would end sunk in, I think we were both a little depressed. I drank too much, he drank too much, and I ended up back at Paul's apartment doing a lot more than kissing. As soon as it was over, my conscience kicked in. Yes, it should have kicked in long before, but I knew beyond all shadow of any doubt my marriage was over and done with. William and I both had said society has allowed far too many second chances for people that didn't deserve them. Yes, humans do make mistakes. While we both believed anyone who cheated did deserve a second chance, it could never be with the one they betrayed. Life might give them the opportunity to love someone else again, but any opportunities with the cheated spouse was totally undeserved and detrimental to both parties. Things got very complicated when William arrived home from Tulsa. I happened to be having my period, so I knew there would be no intimacy between us. Thankfully, not in a million years would I have subjected my husband to any diseases. Regardless of how much I wanted to make love to William one last time, I couldn't allow that to happen. I wrote out a long letter to William confessing what I'd done and planned to give it to him after a face-to-face confession. To this day, I don't know what happened for William to discover what was going on. For all I know, He had been monitoring my online conversation with Paul from day one. I never got to ask him how he discovered my betrayal, and the realization he learned what I'd done before I had the chance to tell him caused me to fall to my knees and swear I planned to tell him. William didn't believe that, and I wouldn't have either. He had a stack of the texts between Paul and I printed out. Though I didn't deny any of what he accused me of, that honesty came far too late. He packed a few things in a suitcase and left me on a Monday evening. Wednesday night, he drove to a shopping center, parked his car, and took his own life. To know I had destroyed our relationship was torture to my soul like I'd never known. To know I'd even robbed him of a chance to find someone else to be happy with ruined me. The realization I didn't just end my relationship with William, but every relationship he'd had or would have, caused more guilt than I could ever express. I could go into all the things that have happened since William passed away, but a lot of it would be details far too many wouldn't truly care about. Suffice it to say, his family hates me and my family. My family was disgusted by my actions and continues to be to this day. Their love for me didn't die, but their disappointment and shame toward me will never end, and that's how it should be. No, the results were not anything I intended, but when choices are made that cause pain and suffering, we are still guilty for causing that grief. I see a therapist twice a week to try and work through things. I was introduced to someone through my therapist that is genuinely helping me sort through my feelings. Years ago, she intentionally set a small fire to set off alarms to scare her ex-boyfriend and the girl he just started seeing. The fire spread quickly, and what had been intended as a joke caused multiple people to lose their lives. She and I have discussed so many things about her story and mine. Things can never be the way they once were, nor should they be, but if I am to keep living, I need a plan to make what is left of my life as meaningful as possible. So that is basically my story. Anyone who wants to post messages of hate for me and tell me what a wretched person I am, go right ahead. I won't be replying to it, but if it helps you get rid of any rage you have, make me your verbal punching bag. Those with specific questions, I will answer as best I can, no matter how much some things may hurt to discuss or admit. For those that read this who have been cheated on, yes, many of you may have been intentionally betrayed, but those who had a significant other who was just as perplexed why they cheated as you were, listen to my story. It doesn't make one damn thing I did right, just the opposite. But if it helps you to understand that you did little to nothing to cause the infidelity, so be it. Those unrepentant cheaters, I hope you do read my cautionary tale and know that you have the ability to destroy. You won't just be destroying someone else, you will be destroying your relationship with many people and a huge part of yourself. I realize I have no room to preach to or judge anyone except myself. I just don't want anyone to find their William and lose them. I don't want anyone to sink to the depths I did or cause the pain and sorrow I did. And most of all, I want all the people who have great relationships to cherish it and never take it for granted. As humans, we are not immune to being able to be swayed under the wrong conditions and series of events. When we love someone, we carry part of their soul around with us. Just one betrayal makes it impossible for that person to hold that piece of you again. I had my husband's heart in my hands, and I now deserve the fact I will never again hold his heart, nor will he ever again hold me. This life is far too much pain without harming the very ones we love, and love is far too precious to risk on anything. TL/DR. I cheated, which caused my husband to commit unalived mere days after confronting me. This is intended as a final response update. First, someone shared a link to a post asking if William posted it. William didn't have Reddit that I know of, and considering he's been dead a year, I doubt it was him. That was a sad story as well. I truly hope they opted not to take his own life. For those trying to psychoanalyze me to make some sense out of the things I've done, I appreciate the effort, even if it was for your own self-interests. None of the many professionals I have seen so far have a good theory as to why I let things happen. I feel there should be some valid reason why I did what I did too. I just can't come up with one, and it wouldn't be a valid reason to do what I did if I found one. For those that swear this is fake, I can't fathom a reason anyone would post this for a reason other than to warn and perhaps help. It certainly wasn't a karma grab. I've barely responded, so it wasn't for attention, and it certainly wasn't to lift my spirits because I've rightfully been slammed for my betrayal. Admitting to something horrible is not easy. Imagining it never happened doesn't help me, But you all do you. I do not keep in contact with Paul and have not heard from him since before William committed unalived. The only things I know about him are secondhand from people I worked with. I have no interest in being with Paul or having him in my life in any way. So, to those thinking I planned my vile actions to ride off into the sunset with a first-rate lacrosse coach, no. Bless you all. I won't be commenting anymore, but I'll leave the post up as a resource in case someone needs it in the future. Bless you all. May you have stellar lives full of happiness, but most of all, peace. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Dad blamed me for Mom's death at childbirth and favored my sister all my life. When he got sick, I still helped him. But at my wedding, he demanded I invite my sister, who slept with my ex. This month, I married the love of my life, Zach. As newlyweds, you'd expect us to be basking in the joy of our honeymoon, planning our future, or just enjoying the bliss of starting this new chapter together. Instead, I find myself turning to Reddit today, desperate for clarity and advice, because my father is making my life unbearable. I can't help but wonder, am I the one at fault here? Let me give you some context. The issue traces back to my decision to invite my dad to walk me down the aisle at my wedding. On the surface, this might sound like a sweet, typical gesture. However, it's important to note that my dad and I have never been close, mainly because of his attitude towards me. You see, my mom died while giving birth to me. At the time, my dad wasn't even there. He was away on a work trip when my mom went into labor unexpectedly. There were complications. She suffered severe blood loss, and despite the doctor's efforts, they couldn't save her. By the time my dad returned, he was met with the devastating news that his wife was gone. All he had left was me, a newborn he'd never met, and who, in his eyes, was responsible for his wife's death. This set the tone for everything that followed. Now, I understand on some level that losing my mom the way he did must have been devastating for him. But over the years, it became clear that his grief had turned into resentment toward me. That resentment wasn't subtle. It was loud and evident in how he treated me. I've often felt like I was carrying the weight of guilt for something I had no control over, simply because I was the baby who survived when my mom didn't. My older sister, Mary, who is 4 years older than me, once told me that during my early years, Dad wouldn't even look at me. She said he would tell everyone who would listen that I reminded him too much of Mom, and he didn't like that. Apparently, he hired a full-time nanny, and I was left pretty much the whole day with her. As a result, I spent my childhood feeling neglected and unwanted. This rejection was something I grew up feeling deeply, even if it was never directly spelled out to me. While other kids had a loving dad to rely on, mine treated me like I barely existed. On the other hand, Mary was always Dad's favorite. That's not just my perspective. It's a fact that both Mary and I have acknowledged over the years. My dad didn't even try to hide it. He lavished her with attention and care in ways I could only dream of. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, while I was just there. I remember after I turned 10 or 11, I was assigned the role of the family helper. Dad would order me to do the household chores while Mary was exempt from lifting a finger. When I asked why, he would justify it by saying that Mary needed to focus on her studies and shouldn't be bothered with tasks like washing dishes or doing laundry. But for me, he said I should learn to handle those things because I wasn't as good at academics as Mary and might end up being a stay-at-home wife. Obviously, this was unfair, but he didn't care. I was left to pick up the slack. I would clean, scrub, and fold clothes, and if I ever dared to complain or ask for help, Dad would get angry. He'd threaten to ground me or take away my phone, which, as a kid, felt like the ultimate punishment. If I wanted something, a new outfit, a book, anything, I was told it was unnecessary or a waste of money. Meanwhile, Mary seemed to get everything she wanted without so much as a second thought. If I was stranded somewhere and called him to pick me up, he would flat out refuse and tell me to figure it out on my own, even if that meant walking home alone. But if Mary needed a ride, whether it was 5 minutes away or an hour, Dad would drop everything to be there for her. There were no questions, no excuses, just unwavering dedication for her. The unfairness was maddening. Over time, Mary also started leveraging Dad's bias to make my life even harder. For instance, if something around the house broke, she would immediately blame me, knowing full well that no matter how much I denied it or explained what actually happened, Dad would side with her and punish me. Mary would use my love for arts and crafts as a way to belittle me. I've always been a creative person, finding joy in making things with my hands, but Mary would use this passion against me, mocking me to Dad, saying how girly and childish I was and how arts and crafts were just for losers. He would do nothing to defend me and would instead mock me alongside her. It hurt deeply because it was something that made me happy, and yet it became another reason for my family to treat me like I didn't measure up. On occasions, whenever I disagreed with Dad or stood up for myself, Mary would swoop in to defend him, painting me as a disrespectful and difficult child. Once, during an argument, she even went as far as saying that Mom would have been ashamed to have given birth to someone like me. She added that she wished I had died instead of Mom, as I was making her and Dad's life miserable. That statement shattered me. Can you imagine what happens when you hear such things from your own sibling and father almost every other day? You learn to live in guilt and start keeping things to yourself. Because of all this, I learned to be extremely cautious around both Mary and Dad. I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time, constantly on guard to avoid doing or saying anything that might trigger their criticism or punishment. I was tired of getting blamed for Mom's death. I started counting down the years and days until I could leave for college, and when I finally got the chance, I didn't look back. I moved out and eventually got my own job so I could support myself. It felt like I finally had a taste of freedom, the ability to live life on my own terms, without my dad and sister's constant shadow hanging over me. After I moved out, things with Dad improved slightly, not because we became closer, but because we didn't see each other anymore. The physical distance made it easier to avoid fights or tense encounters. Meanwhile, Mary, who never pursued a steady job, stayed with Dad rent-free. Over the years, she would claim to everyone that this was her strategy to save money, when in reality, I knew she just liked being coddled and favored by my dad. He liked taking care of her, even though she was a full-grown adult who should have been taught to be more independent and responsible, and she gladly let him. Once on Thanksgiving, Dad had invited me and my then-boyfriend to spend the holidays at his house. I wasn't thrilled about it. I wasn't close with them, but I agreed out of politeness. My boyfriend and I decided we would only stay for 3 nights and then spend the rest of the holiday with his family, where things were warmer and more welcoming. When Mary met my ex during the Thanksgiving visit, things took a turn for the worse. From the moment they were introduced, she was constantly flirting with him in ways that felt entirely inappropriate. She kept showering him with compliments, calling him handsome and gorgeous, while subtly putting me down by saying she never thought her ugly duckling of a sister would end up with someone like him. I was obviously offended, but I didn't want to start a fight with her in front of my then-boyfriend. However, her behavior crossed the line when she began finding excuses to touch him. Light brushes on his arm, leaning in too close, or playful taps on his shoulder. It wasn't just uncomfortable for me, it was incredibly disrespectful. This is when I tried to handle the situation maturely. I pulled her aside and politely asked her to tone it down, explaining that her actions might be making him uncomfortable. But Mary, true to form, brushed me off, saying I was overreacting and that I should stop bringing the evening down with my jealousy. She dismissed my concerns as if they were trivial, even laughing at me. After dinner, Dad went upstairs to his room, leaving me, Mary, and my ex to watch a movie together in the living room. What should have been a cozy, relaxed evening quickly turned into another uncomfortable situation. Throughout the movie, Mary kept finding reasons to play fight with my ex like a child, nudging him, teasing him, and leaning into his personal space. What made it even worse was that my ex seemed to be enjoying all the attention. While I wouldn't say he was openly reciprocating her flirtation, he certainly wasn't discouraging it either. Seeing them both, I felt completely sidelined, like I was the third wheel to my own boyfriend and sister. It was humiliating. At some point during the movie, I couldn't take it anymore. I was tired, emotionally and physically, and the weight of feeling disrespected in my own family's home was too much. I excused myself and went upstairs to get some sleep, leaving them alone to finish the movie. I thought my boyfriend would eventually join me in my room, but he never did. The next morning, I woke up early, and the house was eerily quiet. Something felt off immediately, especially since I noticed that my then-boyfriend hadn't slept beside me at all throughout the night. Concerned and a little suspicious, I decided to go downstairs to check on him, thinking maybe he'd fallen asleep on the couch while watching the movie. But he wasn't there. A pit began to form in my stomach as I thought about where else he could be. Against my better judgment, I walked toward Mary's room, my heart pounding. I opened the door, and there they were, my worst fear playing out before my eyes. My ex and my sister were sleeping in bed together, half naked. On the floor beside them were 2 empty wine bottles and glasses. The sight made me feel sick to my core. My head spun with disbelief and anger as I realized that he had slept with my sister. Of all the people he could have cheated on me with, it was Mary, my sister, the one person who had already made my life miserable for as long as I could remember. I couldn't hold back my rage. I screamed, startling them awake. They both looked startled and panicked as I began angrily throwing pillows at them. My ex started stammering apologies, claiming over and over that it was a mistake and blaming the alcohol. He said they'd both been too drunk to know what they were doing, as if that was supposed to excuse their actions. His words only made me angrier. Drunkenness doesn't erase betrayal. What hurt even more was Mary's reaction. She never apologized. She didn't even seem embarrassed or regretful. Instead, she had the audacity to tell me to get out of her room so that she could get dressed. She yelled at me for invading her privacy, as if I was the one in the wrong for catching them in the act. Her complete lack of remorse, her arrogance, and her attempt to turn the situation around on me left me speechless. When I told my dad what had happened, I expected at the very least that he would share in my outrage or offer some kind of support. Initially, he seemed just as shocked and appalled as I was. For a brief moment, I thought he might actually stand by me. But then his tone shifted, and he told me in no uncertain terms that while he didn't support Mary's actions, he wasn't going to interfere because Mary and my ex were both adults, so they were allowed to do whatever it was that they wanted. He acted as if my sister sleeping with my then-boyfriend was a mistake that could simply be swept under the rug, rather than a monumental betrayal. What made it worse was how Dad tried to turn the blame back onto me. According to him, I should have been more careful about the kind of man I brought into the family. He said my ex had a loose character, so it was basically my fault for bringing him around Mary. It was as if he believed I should have somehow predicted my ex's betrayal, or worse, that I had knowingly set myself up for this heartbreak. His comments made me feel like I was losing my grip on reality. My sister was not an innocent bystander in this situation. She actively pursued my ex, knowing full well how much it would hurt me. Yet my dad completely downplayed her role, almost absolving her of anything, while piling the blame entirely on me. It was like he refused to hold Mary accountable for anything she did, no matter how blatantly cruel or selfish it was. Ultimately, I knew what I had to do. I broke up with my ex immediately. There was no coming back from what he had done, and I couldn't stay with someone who would betray me so deeply, especially with my own sister. As for Mary, I cut all ties with her after this. She never apologized or showed even a shred of remorse. Instead, she took the situation and turned it into something to brag about. She went around telling our cousins about how she stole my man in one night and even boasted that he had apparently told her she was better in bed than me. It was vile and humiliating, and she said it all with pride, as if hurting me was some kind of twisted victory for her. My relationship with my dad also fractured. His refusal to hold Mary accountable and his decision to side with her, even indirectly, was the final straw. I went into no contact with him. Dad would sometimes try to reach out to me to smooth things over, but I would refuse any communication. However, things then changed out of nowhere. Earlier this year, my dad had a major health scare. It was serious, and while the doctors were able to save him, the experience left him weak and in need of care. Despite all the pain and resentment I harbored, I was the one who stepped up to help him, not out of obligation, but because I knew I had the means and the heart to do it. I had already lost my mom, and despite everything, I didn't want to lose my dad too. I took on a lot of the responsibilities for his recovery. I paid for medical bills that his insurance didn't cover and hired a caretaker to ensure he was comfortable and recovering well at home. It wasn't easy, but I did it because it felt like the right thing to do. My sister, on the other hand, did little to nothing to help. Her salary isn't enough to pay for anything substantial, and she didn't seem particularly inclined to contribute either. She just let me handle all of Dad's responsibilities. I guess during this time Dad's eyes finally opened to the truth. He realized how much I was taking care of him while Mary wasn't lifting a finger. Unexpectedly, he apologized to me. He acknowledged how he had treated me growing up, how he had failed to be there for me, and how he had let Mary's actions slide when they hurt me the most. For the first time in my life, I felt like Dad truly saw the pain he had caused me. It was a healing moment, and while it didn't erase everything, it opened the door for us to start rebuilding our relationship. We began talking more, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like there was hope for us. So when I started planning my wedding, inviting my dad felt like the right thing to do. Our relationship seemed to be slowly improving, and despite everything, I wanted him to be there for such an important moment in my life. However, inviting Mary was out of the question. She had never apologized or showed me that she felt remorse for what she had done to me. She and I had no relationship, and I wanted to keep it that way. But my dad, perhaps emboldened by our renewed connection, began to push for me to invite her. He insisted that Mary had changed and deserved a second chance. I asked him point blank, if she had really changed, then why she hadn't reached out to me even once to apologize. If she was remorseful, surely an apology wouldn't be too much to ask. But instead of understanding my perspective, Dad doubled down, saying I should let bygones be bygones and not pester Mary for an apology. He argued that it had been years since the incident with my ex, and that my wedding was the perfect opportunity for a fresh start for all of us. I couldn't believe he was asking this of me. After everything I'd been through, after everything Mary had done, he wanted me to just forgive and forget without so much as an acknowledgement from her of the harm she'd caused. It felt like yet another example of him excusing her behavior while expecting me to take the high road. But this time, I wasn't going to let that happen. I put my foot down and told him no. If Mary wanted to make amends, the first step was an apology, and until that happened, she had no place in my life, much less at my wedding. This is when my dad flat out said that if Mary wasn't invited, he wouldn't be attending either, nor would he walk me down the aisle. He even tried to manipulate me by saying that their absence would cause people to gossip and that it would reflect poorly on me for not having them by my side on such an important occasion. I realized that this was yet another instance of him trying to control the situation and guilt me into doing what he wanted. But I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let him or anyone else manipulate me, so I disinvited him altogether. If he wasn't going to respect my boundaries, then he didn't deserve to be part of my special day. Instead, I turned to my paternal grandfather and asked him to walk me down the aisle. When I told Grandpa about the situation, he immediately agreed. He was honored to take on the role, and he didn't hesitate to express his disappointment in my dad's behavior. Grandpa, like many others in our family, knew about my dad's favoritism and how he blamed me for my mother's death all my life. He was deeply disappointed that even now, after everything, Dad hadn't changed. Anyway, my wedding day was beautiful. Grandpa walked me down the aisle with pride, and we had an amazing time celebrating with the people who truly cared about me and my happiness. It felt like the fresh start I had always dreamed of, surrounded by love and support. But of course, my dad wasn't going to let things go so easily. After the wedding, when he found out what had happened, he threw a massive tantrum. He called me outraged and said he couldn't believe I had gone through with the wedding without him. He had admitted that he had fully expected me to back down and invite him back. He was livid that I had asked Grandpa to take his place, insisting that Grandpa had no right to walk me down the aisle. What really seemed to push Dad over the edge, though, was the wedding gift I had received from Grandpa. You see, during the reception, Grandpa, who had been so supportive towards me throughout this entire process, made a surprising announcement. He said he was giving me his vacation house as a wedding gift, wanting me and my husband to make new memories there. This was completely unexpected, and I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Grandpa told me that he believed, out of Mary and me, It was me who truly appreciated the value of family and the memories that came with the house. He said he knew I would cherish it and take care of it just as he had. His gesture meant everything to me, but it has infuriated my dad. As Grandpa's only child, Dad had always assumed he would inherit everything, including the vacation house. Now that it has been gifted to me, Dad sees this as a betrayal on my part. Since the wedding, my dad and Mary have been relentlessly accusing me of stealing the vacation house from them. They insist that it's my dad's legal right to inherit it as Grandpa's only child and have been pressuring me to give it back to him. The accusations are as unfair as they are absurd. Mary, predictably, has been the loudest, egging Dad on and portraying me as some kind of an opportunist who manipulated and took advantage of Grandpa's generosity. Update 1. Answering a few of the most asked questions. Is your sister married? No, my sister isn't married yet. She hates commitment and doesn't stay in long-term relationships with anyone. Why does your adult sister still stay with your dad? Well, it's because Mary is my dad's golden child, and he's her safety net. They have always had a codependent relationship, and it seems to work for them. Dad loves to spoil her endlessly. While I've worked hard to stand on my own, Mary continues to rely on my dad for everything. She neither has a steady job nor does she have any savings. Why didn't your grandparents help you out earlier by standing up to your dad? They did. My grandparents have always been a part of my life and have tried to help me as much as they could. They did try to talk to my dad several times, but my dad never changed. At the end of the day, it wasn't their responsibility to raise me. It was my dad's. He should have stepped up, taken accountability, and been the parent I needed. I understand that he was grieving and that losing my mom was devastating for him, but that doesn't excuse his neglect or favoritism. As a child, all I felt was unloved and unwanted. Dad was the adult, the parent, and he should have been the one to rise above his grief and take care of me. Has your dad dated anyone after your mom passed away? No, my dad has remained single all these years. He still mourns the loss of my mom to this day. I don't think he ever truly healed from her passing. Update 2. So today I met with Dad. He had been incessantly calling and messaging me for weeks, and I finally decided that it was better to meet him face to face and put an end to this ongoing drama. When we met, I firmly told him that I wasn't going to give the vacation house to him and that he needed to let go of the idea that he was entitled to inherit it. Grandpa had given it to me as a gift, and his decision was final. My dad, as expected, didn't take this well. He called me selfish and manipulative, accusing me of stealing something that rightfully belonged to him. He told me how I had already taken so much from him over the years, and even now, I seem to have taken another thing from him. His words didn't surprise me, but they still stung. This is when I looked him in the eye and asked him directly, "Why do you hate me so much? What have I ever done to you?" My question seemed to catch him off guard. I could see Dad falter for a moment, but I pressed on. I told him that I've always known he blamed me for my mother's death. But was that the only reason for his hatred? I reminded him that I was just a baby when Mom died, so what did he expect me to do to save her? I was innocent, and if anyone should feel guilty, it was him for not being there when she needed him the most. He should have been there for my mom, rather than being away on a work trip. I told Dad that it wasn't fair for him to continuously project his guilt and grief onto me. It wasn't my fault, and it never had been, yet he had spent my entire life punishing me for something that was beyond my control. I could feel the weight of my words hanging in the air. At first, my dad tried to avoid answering me anything straight, but I pressed on. I told him that this was his chance to finally say whatever was on his mind once and for all. Just let it all out. This is when my dad finally admitted the truth. He told me that he never wanted a second child and that when Mom got pregnant with me, he was against it. He explained how despite the doctors warning her about the risks, Mom had insisted on having me, and Dad had urged her to abort. Ultimately, it was her decision, and he couldn't do anything about it. So when she died giving birth to me, he blamed me for taking her away from him. He told me that for years he wished I had never been born, and that as I grew older and started to look more like her, it only made him miss Mom even more. My heart broke as he spoke. Dad told me that only after I took care of him this year following his health scare did he realize that I was also more like Mom in other ways, especially in how caring and giving I am, just like she was. This is when he finally started to feel this overwhelming sense of guilt, and that is when he apologized to me. He told me he genuinely regretted the way he treated me, but he just couldn't help himself since my sister was easier than me. He admitted that Mary never reminded him of Mom. She was more like him and never made him confront his own pain. Then my dad told me how he had hoped my wedding could fix everything. He had hoped to show up as a united family at my wedding, but when I didn't invite Mary and disinvited him, I had apparently ruined everything. He said that me asking Grandpa to walk me down the aisle was the biggest betrayal I could have done to him and that I robbed him of the experience as a father. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything he had put me through, he still had the audacity to point fingers at me. It was as if I was the one who had wronged him, when all I had ever done was try to heal a relationship that was always one-sided. I scoffed at his words, feeling both angry and numb. I told him that clearly I was never going to be good enough for him. Clearly I was always going to be the scapegoat of the family no matter what. At this point, I was just done trying to fix things with him. He didn't deserve my effort or my care anymore. I told him that if he ever found himself in the hospital again, he shouldn't expect me to pay his medical bills or help him out anymore. Instead, he should rely on his precious daughter Mary, who can't even take care of her own finances every month. I also reminded Dad that Grandpa had given me the vacation house all on his own. I told him if he had a problem with that, he could take it up with Grandpa, because I was done trying to explain myself or justify my actions. Dad tried to argue further, but I quickly left as I was done listening to him. Since then, Dad has been calling me several times, but I haven't bothered even picking up. At this point, I am just done with his toxic presence and want to concentrate on my marriage. Throughout all this, my husband Zach has been an amazing support. He understands my family's issues and supports me. Update 3. It's been almost a month since my last update. Even after our conversation, my dad didn't give up trying to guilt-trip me. He kept sending me text after text filled with apologies, trying to make me change my mind about everything. He apologized for the way he treated me and for the things he said, hoping that I might soften and reconsider my decision to cut him off. He told me that he would really need me by his side whenever he was sick in the future, since I was the only one he could trust enough to take care of him. But no matter how many times I read his messages, they didn't change anything. His words felt empty, too little, too late. His apologies were just another attempt to regain control, and I wasn't buying it anymore. Meanwhile, Mary sent me a long, angry message blaming me for everything. She told me how it was unfair of me to threaten to cut off Dad, and that he had already suffered a lot because of me. She also told me that, because of me, she had to grow up without a mother. According to her, I am a curse in everyone's life, and it is my fault that our family is broken. She even went as far as to claim that I had stolen the vacation house from Dad, and that I would get my karma. I didn't waste my time replying to her and just blocked her. She can cry and scream all she wants, but the vacation house is mine, and there's nothing she can do about it. Now on to the next story. Story 6. GF stopped being intimate and wouldn't tell me why, but then I found out she was just insecure about something. So I surprised her with a dance party, and now we're married 4 years later. I'm very concerned about her at this point, and I have no idea what to do. I, 25M, and my GF, 25F, back in Aprilish, we were having sex 2 to 3 times a day. We live in an apartment together. She's been taking online classes for her master's, and I'm working from home since the lockdown started. At some point, she got really busy and tired with a project, so we obviously stopped having sex temporarily. Since it's gotten over, though, which was nearly 4 months ago at this point, she's turned me down every time I've tried to initiate or set the mood for sex. I have never pressured her. I usually wait a couple of nights before asking again when she tells me she's not in the mood, which turned into waiting a week, which turned into waiting 2 weeks. At this point, I'm really concerned. We've never gone anywhere near 4 months without sex before. We've both always had pretty high sex drives. At this point, it's important to note that I do not press the matter or pester or pressure her in any way. The moment she says she's not in the mood, I back off immediately. I don't think I effed up anywhere because she's always quite apologetic when she turns me down. Our relationship is pretty much perfect in every other way, too. We cuddle and hug and have game nights and movie nights. It's never felt like we're drifting apart at any point. She hasn't been behaving differently, like she's upset or depressed. We give each other plenty of space, too. It's not like we're constantly together. We have our own friend circles and we curl up on our own devices from time to time. I've tried talking to her about it, but she gets really upset and keeps insisting that nothing is wrong. I dropped the matter pretty quickly too because I don't want her to feel like I'm pressuring her to have sex. I just want her to let me in and tell me what's wrong. I honestly don't care about the sex, but I know there's something she's not telling me, and it's gone on long enough that I'm getting extremely worried about her. Date 1. Thanks to everyone who replied to my previous post. There were some mixed responses, with some people suggesting I insist on addressing it with her because she's hiding something, with others recommending I give her time to open up on her own. Ultimately, I decided to sort of go for a combo of the two. Friday, when we were both done with work, we sat down and had a discussion. I told her that I could give her the space and time she needed till she was ready to talk to me about it. But I couldn't leave it unaddressed. She needed to acknowledge that there at least was something that she didn't feel ready to tell me, and that was fine, but she at least needed to acknowledge its existence, if only so I stopped feeling like I was going crazy. She started sobbing when I was done, and then she started explaining everything. Some background that I didn't mention in my previous post because it didn't really seem relevant is that my girlfriend has PCOS. One of the consequences of this is that she finds it very difficult to lose weight and has been insecure about her body for most of her life. About a year ago, completely of her own choice, I've always told her that she's beautiful to me no matter what her weight. She resolved to start losing weight, both for her health and to feel better about her body. She started going to the gym a couple times a week, and I was supportive and also cut out all my own junk food consumption in solidarity. Since the lockdown started and the gym shut, apparently she started slowly gaining some weight back due to stress eating and lack of exercise. I am ashamed to say I did not even notice that she was torturing herself over her weight all this while. She admitted that she stopped having sex because she was terrified I would stop finding her attractive after seeing her naked. I reassured her that I think she's gorgeous and attractive no matter what, and I tell her this every day, but she was afraid that would have changed once I saw the weight she had put on. The rest of the conversation consisted of me reassuring her that she's beautiful, and her appreciating but not really believing me. After a bit, she asked me to change the topic, and I reluctantly agreed. We had a fairly quiet dinner. She was a little sad and relieved at the same time at having told me, I think, and I was busy scheming. The next morning before work, I told her she looked lovely again, and she gave me a small smile, like she appreciated it but didn't really believe me. But that was okay. I was going to convince her. I asked her to pick up the groceries that evening because I was going to have a meeting run late. The moment she left home, I got to work. I dug out some fairy lights and a bunch of candles from storage and started setting them up in the living room. Made a couple of playlists and charged the speaker. Snuck down to the florist and bought a giant bouquet. Some more background. I hate dancing because I suck massively at it, while my girlfriend loves it. She used to go dancing every month or two with her girlfriends before lockdown. I join in sometimes because it was worth how happy it made her, but she definitely missed it way more than me. So when she got back, naturally, I greeted her with what were probably the most ridiculous dance moves in the history of mankind. I'm not going to lie, folks, she laughed. She laughed a lot. She took a short video, and we both laughed while watching it later. My movement resembled a 5-year-old practicing kung fu more than it resembled dancing, and I had stuck a rose in my ear for maximum ridiculousness. Totally worth it, though. I have no idea how she ever thought she's ugly. Her smile is just so effing radiant. We danced like idiots for a while before I switched to the slow dance playlist. It was definitely the happiest I'd seen her in a long time. I've been a bad boyfriend and somehow missed how much she missed everything else. I should have done it months ago. I told her all this, told her she's the most beautiful woman in my eyes and always will be, and yeah, we had sex last night. It was all about her. She needed to feel special, and I had been missing that for too long. I offered to make dance nights a weekly thing afterwards, kind of as a substitute for the workouts she's been missing if she wants. She teared up a little. She knows how much I hate dancing. She told me that wasn't necessary. Apparently, sex is just as much of a workout as dancing, and we have a lot of missed workouts to catch up on. I'm certainly not complaining. In all seriousness, though, I'm going to dip into my savings a little and order a home treadmill. She can't afford one right now because of college bills, so I'll surprise her with it. Smiley face. Thank you to everyone who helped me out with their advice. Edit 1. Oh wow. I am completely overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support here. Thanks for all the awards. I just logged back into this account, but I promise I'm going to read each of the replies. One thing I saw pop up a couple of times that I just want to reassure you guys about is that she's mentioned wanting a treadmill but not being able to afford one several times in the past. So I know she wants one. However, I figured that it's dumb to take the chance, and one surprise was good enough. And if there's anything this whole experience has taught me, it's the importance of communication. So I'm going to bring it up at dinner tonight that I comfortably have enough saved up to purchase a home workout machine. Since I saw cycle/elliptical being mentioned, we'll figure out which one we want and that I'd love to buy one for our home for both of us to use. Thank you all so much once again for your advice. Edit 2. RIP me lol. The comments are coming faster than I can read them now. There's no way for me to reply to every one of them, unfortunately. There are a lot of fantastic suggestions for diets, exercise machines, dance classes, and everything in between, so thank you so much for all of them. She has a great endocrinologist whose advice she will ultimately be following, but there are some great points to bring up with him. It is really touching and overwhelming to see all this support. Thank you all so much. Final edit. She loved the idea of getting some equipment to do our workouts at home together. So we're going to sit down and do our research tonight before picking the one we like most. We've gotten some fantastic advice here, and we'll be looking at ellipticals, bikes, rowing machines, Just Dance on the Switch, and a bunch of other stuff that you guys suggested. To all the people who commented to insist she's cheating on me because I'm a slob, thank you for setting the exemplary standard for being macho. Insulting strangers online is so delightfully masculine. The lovely folks who told me to dump her because she's fat get the disappointing but not unexpected effing shout out as well. For the overwhelming majority of people, though, I am just breathtaking by the kind and supportive comments we've gotten. Thank you for the treasure trove of advice and tips, and all the love. You folks are amazing. Update 2. December 24th, 2024. Hi everyone. I decided to do a quick Christmas Eve update on my profile page in case anyone was still interested because a lot has happened in 4 years. We're both doing well. We got engaged about 3 years ago and adopted a cat, but it went a bit downhill from there because of a bunch of different health issues that hit her consecutively. She's largely recovered from the temporary ones, and the permanent ones are a lot more under control now thanks to regular health checkups and medication, but it was a rocky couple of years, not for our relationship, just for us in general. All the medical issues also meant she hasn't worked since, which isn't an issue financially but for other reasons which I'll come to in a moment. She's doing a lot better mentally now as well, at least relative to last year. She still struggles with self-esteem and feeling like a burden to her loved ones, especially me, especially because of the aforementioned lack of work over the last few years. She's a lot more communicative about these things now though, instead of bottling them up, so she's not let our relationship suffer for this, and I like to think that even if her self-esteem hasn't gone up, her way of coping with it is a lot healthier now, and that's an important step in the right direction. She's even been looking to get back to work over the last month or so despite the challenges of low self-esteem, severe imposter syndrome, and having to explain a year-long absence, and I'm really proud of her for not just giving up after the hand she's been dealt health-wise. I'm doing really well. I switched jobs/fields about a year back, and I'm making a lot more money now, and I'm enjoying my work a lot more too. I actually started therapy recently as well because there were some personal discipline issues I wanted to fix, and I ended up discovering a whole host of other issues I had repressed, and bringing them back out into the open and dealing with them has been simultaneously terrifying and liberating, but it's also made me a much better friend and partner, so looks like I'm going to have to keep braving them for as long as it takes. As for the biggest one, as is probably obvious from the title, we got married 2 months ago. We would have done it a lot earlier if she hadn't had a bunch of health issues pop up unexpectedly. But with her on the mend, we were finally able to plan and organize the thing so everyone we wanted to be there could be there. I honestly sometimes still find it surreal, like WTF, I'm a husband? It still feels like I'm dreaming sometimes, and I'm still the clueless, wide-eyed college kid. But I look at the woman sleeping next to me and I remember all the ways I've changed for the better, all the ways I've grown up because of her influence, and I feel really lucky to have her, and I know that I and she still have a lot more growing up to do, but I'm feeling this overwhelming contentedness within because we get to do all that growing up together. I don't know if I'll update this again. Maybe if I get reminded of this account sometime in the future and something major has happened since. Until then, happy holidays everyone, and I hope the new year is your best year yet. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My husband got depressed because his ex-girlfriend made him regret getting married, then asked me to stay faithful while he lives the single life. When I said no, he insulted me, so I left him. About 5 months ago, my husband, Sam, was formally diagnosed with severe depression. It wasn't a very shocking revelation to me, as I'd suspected for a while that my partner was not really doing mentally well. This year, he seemed to be deeply mourning over the loss of both his ex-girlfriend and his best friend. Both of these people had once meant a lot to him, and he had been incredibly close to them. For context, before Sam and I started dating, he and his ex were in a serious relationship for a very long time. Then, out of nowhere, she cheated on him with his best friend, someone he considered like a brother. This betrayal cut him deeply, marking the end of 2 of his most important relationships at once. After that, Sam stayed single for a long time as he was afraid to trust anyone else. He needed time to deal with the pain and sort through his emotions. By the time I met him, he seemed to have made peace with both of it and was trying to move on. Still, the hurt from being betrayed was still there, making him a bit cautious. We dated for 4 wonderful years, where we went through our ups and downs, before deciding to finally get married. We had a beautiful wedding surrounded by friends, family, and the people who mattered most to us. The day was filled with so much joy and love. I have to say that initially, Sam was an incredible partner. Supportive, kind, and deeply caring. Marriage brought us even closer, and for years we built a life together that felt strong and promising. But then, earlier this year, tragedy struck. Sam's ex-girlfriend and his former best friend died together in a car accident. The news hit him hard. For years he had held on to resentment, but now faced with their deaths, he was overwhelmed by grief he hadn't expected. Something inside him seemed to shatter completely. Sam sometimes shared with me how he wished he'd been able to resolve things with them. He expressed remorse for not having been able to reconcile, to forgive them fully, or at least to speak his piece. Knowing they were gone forever without the chance for closure seemed to weigh heavily on his heart. I reassured him that it was okay to feel this way. After all, they had been an important part of his life. But he started to blame himself for not mending things with them before they passed away. You see, Sam's best friend had reached out multiple times over the years, apologizing and trying to make amends. Yet, Sam couldn't bring himself to forgive him, which I don't blame him for. I mean, it's not every day that your best buddy sleeps with your partner. Even though the apology was there, the pain of the past was something Sam couldn't just put aside. I would comfort him by repeatedly reminding him that what happened wasn't his fault and that he had every right to protect himself from further hurt. But no amount of reassurance seemed to help him. Instead, Sam's grief only grew, spiraling into something darker and harder to manage. He would spend hours and hours just lying in bed, often losing entire days to video games or at times just staring blankly at the wall, a beer in hand. He began skipping work, calling in sick, or just staying home without any explanation. I could see he was sinking deeper into despair, and I tried my best to encourage him, to get him out of the house and do things that might help him feel better, even just a little. I suggested small outings or anything that might offer a distraction, but my words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Due to his lack of motivation to go to work, he lost his job, so I became the primary breadwinner. Slowly after this, my husband's behavior started to change in other unsettling ways. His mood became hard to predict, shifting between being easily irritated and shutting down completely. He grew distant and defensive, and would snap at me over the smallest thing. On top of not working, he did nothing to help me around the house anymore. As a result, household responsibilities piled up, and I found myself carrying the weight of daily life without his support, all the while watching him drift further away. Even then, I still loved him, so I thought maybe we could still make it through this. However, things just got worse. Sam started to pick fights with me if I stayed out too late, whether it was for work or just to unwind with friends on a Friday. I would come back home to see him sitting on the couch, waiting for me. He would ask me multiple questions about why I was out so late and who I was spending so much time with. Even if I answered him honestly, he'd hint that he didn't believe me and accuse me of maybe sleeping with my coworkers or friends, saying that's why I was never home. Hearing these baseless accusations from him was both painful and offensive. No matter what I told to reassure him that I would never cheat on him, he just didn't listen. As a result, we began having intense, exhausting arguments where he demanded that I come straight back home after work, and even on weekends, he wanted me to stay home with him as if my time belonged to him alone. I started to feel suffocated, like the space I once had in our marriage was shrinking, replaced by his insecurities and anger. Things escalated when his frustration started spilling over physically. There were 2 alarming instances where he crossed a line I never thought he would. In one of our arguments, he punched a wall just above my head in a fit of anger, a violent display that left me feeling unsettled and wary. But the real breaking point came when, during another heated moment, he slapped me, and I almost stumbled to the ground. My husband is a much bigger man than me, so I was completely shaken. That moment was a clear sign to me that his grief and depression had morphed into something darker and more dangerous. I realized I couldn't stay in a relationship where my safety and well-being were at risk, so I packed my bags, ready to leave him and protect myself. Seeing me ready to walk out the door brought him to a state of desperation. He pleaded with me to stay, promising me over and over that he would change himself. I stood firm, telling him that for me to even consider staying, he would need to seek real help. He agreed, saying he would go to a doctor if it meant he had a chance to save our marriage. Reluctantly, I decided to give our relationship one last try, hoping he would actually commit to the help he so clearly needed. It was a difficult decision, filled with doubt, but I wanted to believe that the man I had fallen in love with could still find his way back to himself and to us. This was when Sam was diagnosed with severe depression. He started taking medication weekly and began meditating to help manage his anger. Eventually, I could see some positive changes slowly emerging. The medication seemed to help stabilize his mood, and he made genuine efforts to be more present and helpful around the house. Little by little, I saw glimpses of the person he used to be, the man I fell in love with, and it gave me hope. He showed more willingness to reconnect, and I felt a bit of relief that maybe with time things could improve for us. However, a major issue remained unresolved: his reluctance to return to work and start earning money. He hasn't held jobs since his diagnosis, and this has been a source of ongoing tension between us. I don't mind being the only one bringing in all the money. However, I do want him to at least try. Every time I bring it up, hoping to encourage him to consider something, even part-time work or a role he could do from home, he pushes back, insisting that he feels too low and weak to commit to any job. This disagreement eventually led to both of us yelling at each other. On one hand, I know he has been struggling, but on the other hand, the added financial strain and his refusal to even explore options have left me feeling frustrated and alone in carrying all the responsibilities. Last month, Sam surprised me by suggesting we see a couples counselor. He shared that with our ongoing relationship issues, he felt we should see someone who could help us communicate more effectively and work through some of our issues. He then went on to say how he had already reached out to a counselor and made an appointment, so all I had to do was show up. I agreed, thinking that this counselor could help us strengthen our relationship and perhaps offer him encouragement and support to take those first steps toward rebuilding his life back to normal. However, I can honestly say that couples counseling has made our relationship worse. During the sessions, Sam admitted that a big part of his depression comes from the life we've built together. He feels like he hasn't been able to live the way he wanted, since being married brought so much responsibility. He also mentioned that he still misses his ex-girlfriend sometimes and wishes his best friend hadn't taken her from him. In fact, after the betrayal from his ex, he never really healed, and he feels like he's just missed out on life. The more he shared during the sessions, the more I felt like a bystander in my own marriage. He said that he feels like he rushed into a marriage with me without taking the time to enjoy being single and without exploring what he wanted for himself after his heartbreak from his ex-girlfriend. I was taken aback and reminded him that it was him who had proposed to me and we had dated for a long time before we got married. So how was it that he felt rushed about it? The counselor interrupted me and encouraged my husband to continue to speak his truth, even if it hurt my feelings. Over the following sessions, Sam began to confess to me in front of the counselor that he wanted a redo of his single life. However, since we were already married now, he asked if I would consider allowing him to see other people while I stayed committed to our marriage. I scoffed at his question, hoping it was a joke. However, he argued that he deserved to experience both his single life and married life at the same time, and that it was only fair that he had the opportunity to explore and find himself before it was too late for him. I was appalled by his suggestion and didn't hold back in letting him know just how absurd and hurtful it was. I told him his demand was outrageous and unacceptable. If he wanted to live like a single man and explore, I could make that happen by leaving the marriage entirely. I wasn't about to stay in a relationship where I was expected to be loyal while he was free to act however he pleased with strangers. My words seemed to strike a nerve, and Sam became furious. He shot back, claiming that I could never understand his feelings because, unlike him, I'd been with multiple people before we ever got together. I calmly reminded him that I'd only had 2 previous relationships before him, both serious, meaningful commitments that simply hadn't worked out. It hurt that he would try to use my past against me, as if my experiences somehow made me less entitled to expect commitment in our marriage. I told him that if he felt so strongly about living a single life, he should have thought about that before we walked down the aisle. I reminded him that I had made sacrifices for our relationship this year especially. I had been the one holding down our home, supporting him financially and emotionally through his depression, all because I believed in our marriage and in him. But now he was making unreasonable demands. It was as if he wanted the comfort and stability I provided without honoring the commitment that came with it. Couldn't allow that. I told him firmly that he couldn't have it both ways. He needed to make a choice. It was either a committed life with me or a single life without me. He couldn't keep me in limbo, expecting me to bend to his wishes while he kept one foot out the door. Since that confrontation in front of our counselor, Sam has been sulking around the house, acting as if I'm the one who's being unreasonable. He's repeatedly tried to convince me that I'm being too harsh and even selfish for refusing to let him have some fun. He keeps insisting that if I truly loved him, I'd be more open-minded and supportive of his desire to explore. His attempts to guilt me into agreeing make it clear that he still doesn't understand, or refuses to understand, how disrespectful and unfair his request is. But I'm standing firm. I've tried to be compassionate, understanding, and supportive of him through the ups and downs of his depression. But there are boundaries I won't compromise on. I don't believe that being open-minded means sacrificing my own self-respect and the integrity of our marriage. I refuse to let him manipulate me into thinking that I'm the one in the wrong. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing my husband to see other people while we are still married? Update 1. For everyone wondering if Sam might already be cheating and using this as a way to justify his behavior, I honestly don't think that's the case. My husband barely leaves the house. He's constantly around, either playing video games or just idling in his own thoughts. Ironically, if he were having an affair, at least I'd have clarity and a straightforward reason to walk away. Yes, it would hurt, but at least I'd know he could move on without me. Instead, I'm left dealing with this painful and confusing situation. As for everyone wondering why Sam's ex and his best friend's deaths affected him so much all of a sudden, I am none the wiser. But I am just guessing it might have given him a reality check. These were people he knew well, and maybe losing them so unexpectedly made him spiral. I'm not entirely sure, but I've never really understood why it hit him so hard to make him feel so down about it, or why he thinks destroying our marriage and sleeping around will somehow fix this depression. As one commenter pointed out under my post, maybe Sam has never really loved me throughout our marriage. Maybe he just saw me as a safety net, someone reliable and loyal after his relationship with his ex, and he liked that. Maybe he still has unresolved feelings for his ex and now regrets not giving things a chance with her. Whatever the case, it's ridiculous that my husband now wants an open relationship, something I never would have expected as I'm deeply committed to monogamy. If he had ever hinted at wanting this kind of arrangement before, I would never have married him in the first place. This sudden shift feels like a complete betrayal of the life and values we built together. The reason I haven't already left him is that I genuinely worry about his mental health. He has been my partner for so long, and for years it really felt like it was just him and me against the world. He was never this mean or selfish. He never raised a hand on me or yelled at me. When he began to change so drastically after the tragic accident involving his ex-girlfriend and best friend, I told myself that it was just a phase and that he would find his way back in time. I wanted to believe that the man I fell in love with was still there, just buried under all the grief and pain. But now, after everything that's happened, I've finally accepted that it's time for me to choose myself. This marriage has clearly come to an end. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. I have taken the next step for myself and reached out to a lawyer in private to start the divorce process. Sam and I own our house together and we have a joint account, but given that he's still unemployed and the financial situation is already strained, I needed to first secure my assets before moving forward with the divorce papers. Once the lawyer told me that everything was finalized, I was preparing myself to break the bad news to him. Then yesterday, Sam crossed a line I simply couldn't ignore anymore, and I realized I couldn't keep my mouth shut any longer. We were at Sam's sister's house for a family lunch. His family is incredibly kind to me, and we've always had a good relationship, so I was looking forward to meeting all of them. For context, his family knows we have been having some issues in our marriage, but no one knows the whole story. During lunch, I noticed Sam was continuously drinking. Now, he's been strongly discouraged from drinking because of his ongoing medications for depression, so seeing him with a glass of whiskey immediately raised red flags for me. When I gently tried to talk to him about it, he scoffed, ignored me, and went right back to drinking. I felt really disrespected, so I left him to do what he wanted. Later during the meal, as everyone was chatting about their lives, Sam's mother asked how things were going between us and how my work was going. I mentioned that we had been going to couples counseling and that Sam still needed to work through his issues. I then continued telling everyone about my work when Sam interrupted me by making a comment that caught me off guard. He said that his depression could be cured faster if his wife understood what he really wanted in his life. His mother asked him what he meant by that. This is when Sam openly declared in front of his entire family that I was the reason why his life was so miserable. Everyone stopped eating and just stared at him in confusion. We could all see that he was drunk by now. Sam went on to say how I have refused to give him what he wanted and that I am nothing but a conservative, insecure, and possessive wife who is making him feel suffocated. I could hardly believe what I was hearing, how he was twisting the narrative and putting the blame solely on me. His sister immediately asked him why he was talking about me in such a way. She and I were close, so she looked furious at her brother. The rest of his family sat in stunned silence, clearly shocked by his harsh accusations. I felt humiliated and betrayed, sitting there, listening to him as he continued explaining to everyone that all he wanted was a small thing from me, but that I refused to give it to him only out of my stubbornness. Hearing this, I snapped. The way he was trying to paint me as the villain in front of his family was so hurtful. I turned to Sam and demanded to know why he wasn't being honest with his family and giving them the entire truth about what he actually wanted from me. I looked at his family, and with all the frustration and pain I'd been holding in, I told them exactly what Sam had asked of me. How he wanted to explore other relationships, basically sleep around with strangers while I stayed loyal to him. How he expected me to continue being a supportive wife while he enjoyed his life unburdened. I laid it all out, revealing the truth he had been hiding. His family was stunned. His mother asked Sam if this was really what he was asking of me, and then his father, who had always been kind to me, scolded him for being so ridiculous and asked him if he had truly lost his mind. Sam, however, was still trying to justify himself. He insisted that everyone's marriage goes through a stalemate and believed the solution he was proposing would help to solve the issues in our marriage. Sam justified that this was only temporary, that I should feel lucky that he was even asking me for permission when there were so many men who simply cheated on their wives without anybody ever finding out. I yelled at him, telling him that I was sick of him acting this way, trying to justify his sick excuses and selfish behavior. It was a breaking point for me. I announced in front of everyone that I was done with him. I couldn't keep fighting for a marriage that he no longer valued. I told him flat out that our marriage was over and that I would be sending him the divorce papers. His face looked dumbfounded, like he couldn't believe what was happening. He slowly blinked and just stared at my face. I handed him my lawyer's card and told him I would be moving out that very day, and if he wanted to talk to me about the divorce, he could contact my lawyer. His parents, understandably concerned, tried to console me, telling me that Sam was probably acting this way because of his medication, that he didn't really know what he was saying or doing. They seemed to be looking for a way to excuse his behavior, trying to explain it away as just a temporary lapse caused by his depression and the drugs. But I told them that their son was nothing but a loser who had been dragging me down for the past several months with his talk of depression and grief. There was no more waiting, no more hoping things would change. I had given everything I could to this relationship when he had only disrespected me time and time again. This time, I was going to put myself first. Sam tried to meekly argue that I couldn't just walk out of our marriage over something as silly as this and that we needed to go back to counseling to work things out. I laughed bitterly at his suggestion, shaking my head. I told him that he absolutely needed a counselor, but that didn't mean I did. I wasn't crazy or unwell like him. I wasn't the one who was going around making reckless and selfish demands or blaming my partner for my own poor choices. I made it clear that I was not going to waste any more of my time trying to fix a marriage that I no longer wanted to fix. Without saying another word, I walked out of his sister's house and headed straight to our home, where I began packing. By the time Sam finally got home in an Uber, frantically calling out my name, I was already ready to leave. When he arrived, he immediately tried the same old begging tactic again, pleading with me and insisting that we could work through this hiccup in our marriage. He even tried to hold on to my luggage as a way to prevent me from walking out, but I informed him that if he stopped me from leaving, then I would call 911 on him and make our divorce process even more difficult for him. I asked him firmly to not stop me from walking out with my things, and begrudgingly he let me. I then quickly packed up my stuff and left to stay at a motel. Update 3. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I feel much better after reading them. Ever since that day, I am currently living out of a motel. Sam has been sending me multiple voicemails. One moment he's accusing me of being heartless, telling me I'm ruining everything, and the next he's apologizing for his behavior, expressing how sorry he is for what he's done. It's been a constant emotional roller coaster, and it's clear to me now that he's trying to manipulate the situation, playing on my emotions to get me to reconsider. But at this point, I'm not giving in. His words don't change the fact that I made a decision based on the person he's become, and I'm not going back to the way things were. I've heard enough excuses and false promises. I need to focus on moving forward and healing from everything that's happened. To clear up any confusion once and for all, I'm not leaving my ex because of his depression. I have a huge amount of respect for people going through mental health conditions. Depression is a serious struggle, and I do not want to minimize it. However, when it comes to my relationship with my ex, I am just exhausted because of his lack of accountability. He has constantly used his depression as an excuse to demand whatever he wants from me. This is not fair. I've given more than enough of myself to try and help him, but there comes a point when no single person can carry all this weight alone. Since leaving him, I have felt much better. I have been able to focus on myself, and being away from him has lessened my anxiety. Also, it's heartbreaking to break my marriage, but I have to walk away for my own mental and emotional health. Update 4. It's been 5 months since my last update. I didn't update anything earlier as nothing was finalized until this month. Sam and I are officially divorced, and I can finally say I'm a free woman. Sam and I split the proceeds from the sale of our house equally. Thankfully, we didn't have any major liabilities or children, so there were no alimony payments involved. This day didn't come easily. There were countless moments when Sam and his family tried everything they could to change my mind, to convince me to stay, to believe that things could somehow go back to normal. His mother, for example, came to see me several times after I had moved out. She was on her son's side during the divorce proceedings and was constantly trying to guilt me into staying with Sam. She kept saying that he needed a supportive partner like me and that it was my duty to stay because of our marriage vows. At first, I tried to be polite and reason with her, but as she kept coming back, I became more frustrated with her approach. Finally, during one of her visits, I decided to be honest with her. I told her that Sam had once slapped me in anger and that I should have left him long before then. I asked her if her own husband had ever done that, would she have stayed? I told her that despite everything, I had stayed, even though Sam didn't deserve my forgiveness. She was completely shocked by what I said, and after that, she never came to bother me again. During the divorce proceedings, I have noticed that Sam has gone even deeper into his depression, and honestly, he looks worse than he did before. I hope his family gets him the right help. Sam's sister is the only one who believes I did the right thing by leaving her brother. She and I have continued to remain friends. Currently, I finally moved into a place of my own. Honestly, as a newly divorced woman, it feels so liberating to be freed of my ex. I'm proud of myself for trusting my instincts and choosing to leave a toxic relationship before things could have spiraled any further. Now I wake up when I want, with no one to answer to. I can focus on my career without distractions, and I'm able to spend time with my coworkers and friends guilt-free. I come and go as I please, and it's a feeling I haven't had in a long time. For the first time in a while, I feel like I'm truly living for myself again, without the weight of someone else's sadness and demands dragging me down, and that, for me, is worth everything. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I needed to stay with my sick mother instead of going on a vacation, so my husband took his coworker with him on a trip at our dream resort. He ignored all my calls when my mom died. I've been married to my husband, Nick, for 4 wonderful years. He is a great husband, and our relationship has always been centered around just the two of us. Since very early on, we made a mutual decision to not have any children. It was a choice we were both completely comfortable with, and it's something we've never second-guessed. Our life together has been fulfilling in so many ways, and we enjoy the freedom and flexibility that comes with not having the responsibilities of raising kids. Every year when our wedding anniversary comes around, I like to plan something special to celebrate our time together. It's become a tradition that we both look forward to, a time when we can escape from the usual routines of life and just focus on each other. I've always loved surprising Nick with little getaways or thoughtful experiences that reflect how much I value our relationship. This year, for our approaching 5th anniversary, I decided to go big and book an all-inclusive resort for us for a week. We had always wanted to go to this resort in our city since we had found out about it. I wanted to treat us to something indulgent, a full week of relaxation and pampering where we didn't have to think about anything but focus only on enjoying each other's company. We've both been working hard, and this felt like the perfect way to recharge and reconnect. I talked with Nick before booking this stay, and he seemed pretty excited about getting some time off from work. Unfortunately, my mother wasn't doing well during this time. Almost 15 years ago, she was in a serious car accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Completely changed her life and ours in ways we could never have anticipated. I was still living with my parents at the time, hence I became very involved in taking care of her. My dad was the sole provider for our family, so he had to work long shifts or even overtime to pay for Mom's medical costs. Despite coming back home tired, he would still help out my mom in any way he could. It wasn't easy for any of us, but we made it work as a family. However, things became more challenging when I left for college. My dad had to shoulder the responsibility of caring for her alone, and I could tell it was taking a toll on him. Being away from home during that time made me feel incredibly guilty. I wanted to help, but being at college meant I couldn't physically be there for either of them. Every time I visited, I could see the strain on my dad's face. Though he never complained, he loved my mom and was dedicated to her. But caregiving is exhausting, and I knew he needed support. This is why, when I got my first job after graduating, one of the first things I did was offer to hire a full-time caregiver to help take some of the burden off of my dad. I knew it wouldn't be the same as me or my dad being there for her, but I thought it would at least give him a break sometime to rest and take care of himself. My dad was so grateful when I made the offer. I could see the relief in his eyes, and it made me happy to be able to do something meaningful for both of my parents. It felt good to know that they would have the support they needed and that my dad wouldn't be alone in managing everything. However, my mother's health was declining. She had started having respiratory issues, which made it difficult for her to breathe without supplemental oxygen. Over the years, She had lost much of the muscle tone in her upper body, making it nearly impossible for her to move her wheelchair independently anymore. It was not just her physical health that was deteriorating. Her emotional state had been in steep decline as well. The vibrant, active woman I grew up with, who used to take charge of everything and everyone, was battling deep depression and overwhelming frustration over her lack of mobility. One night, my dad called me in a panic. He said my mom had started waking up in the middle of her sleep screaming from terrifying nightmares. She kept telling him that she was going to die soon. Hearing those words from him made my heart nearly stop. I had known she wasn't doing well, but the thought of her feeling so desperate and terrified was more than I could bear. It had been a month or two since my last visit to them, mostly because of my demanding work schedule. So without a second thought, I told my dad I would drive over to their place in the morning. I knew they needed me, and there was nothing more important at that moment than being there for both of them. However, when I told my husband about my plans to visit my parents for a few days to take care of my mom, he didn't like that. Nick wasn't really a family guy. Unlike me, who was blessed with a warm and supportive family, my husband Nick had a much more difficult upbringing. My husband grew up in a household where his parents clearly favored his sister, who was the golden child in their eyes. Nick, on the other hand, was often overlooked and neglected. It was heartbreaking to learn that he had spent much of his life feeling ignored by the people who were supposed to care for him the most. Over time, he had learned to live with this reality, but the scars it left were deep. Nick's family lived quite a distance away, and they seldom made any efforts to visit us. His family never had any get-togethers, even on Christmas. This physical and emotional distance meant that Nick wasn't close to his family. In fact, he had been estranged from his sister for years, and their relationship was almost non-existent. When Nick and I started dating, I was very open with him about the strong bond one had with my own family. I wanted him to understand how important they were to me and that visiting them was something I did as frequently as I could, despite the long 3 to 4 hour drive it required. In the beginning, Nick seemed to be okay with it. He would even accompany me on those trips, and it felt like he was becoming a part of my family too. My dad, in particular, really took a liking to Nick and treated him like a son. They shared a love for football, and it was a joy to see them bond over a game with a beer in hand, laughing and chatting as if they had known each other for years. But as time went on, something shifted. Nick began to withdraw from these visits, and eventually he stopped coming with me altogether. It was pretty evident that he had grown tired of spending time with my parents over time, since he was not used to being with family frequently. Though he never explicitly said so, it became more and more difficult for me to get him to join me on those trips, and I found myself making excuses for his absence. My dad, who had genuinely enjoyed Nick's company, would sometimes ask about him each time I visited him, his voice tinged with a bit of concern. I didn't have the heart to tell my dad the truth, that Nick didn't want to spend time with him and Mom anymore. So I would lie and say that Nick was caught up with some urgent work or that he had something important to take care of. I knew that Nick's past experiences had shaped him in ways I couldn't fully understand, so I tried my best to be understanding. I had reduced my visits to my parents a lot as a result, since Nick never liked it. However, this time was different. My parents needed me, hence I packed my bags to visit them. When I arrived at their home, I was filled with a mix of emotions. Happiness to be with them, but also a sense of worry that had been lingering in the back of my mind. My dad had mentioned over the phone that my mom wasn't doing well, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of seeing her in person. As soon as I saw her, my heart sank. She looked so much thinner than I remembered, almost frail, and it was clear that her health had deteriorated more than my dad had let on. Her once vibrant hair had started falling out, and she seemed like a shadow of the strong, lively woman who had raised me. It was painful to see her like this, but I pushed those feelings aside because I knew what I needed to do. I needed to be there for her and for my dad, who had been doing his best to take care of her on his own. Over the next few days, I took on the responsibility of cooking for everyone, giving my dad a much-needed break. I knew how much he loved the meals my mom used to make for him, so I made sure to prepare some of his favorites, hoping to bring a bit of comfort and normalcy back into our home. Seeing the contentment on my dad's face as he enjoyed those meals meant everything to me. I tried to spend as much time with both of them as I could, Whether it was sitting by my mom's side talking to her softly or sharing a quiet moment with my dad after dinner, I knew that just being there made a difference, even if I couldn't change the situation. At night, after everything had settled down, I would call Nick to let him know how things were going. I told him about my mom's condition, how worried I was about her, and how my dad was holding up. However, Nick didn't really care much or show any sympathy. Whenever I would share updates about my mom's worsening condition, he would often tell me I was stressing him out about my family problems and that he needed to relax after work. I tried to convince myself that he was probably just exhausted after a long day at work and didn't have the energy to engage more deeply, but in my heart, it stung a little. I wanted him to understand the gravity of what was happening and to offer some comfort, but he didn't. As our anniversary date approached, my mom's condition took a frightening turn for the worse. She began vomiting blood and bile, was unable to keep anything down, and was struggling to sleep at night. I would stay up with her for hours at night and listen to the radio with her just to calm her down. It was terrifying to watch her suffer like this. We visited the doctor, and he prescribed her medication to manage the symptoms, but he made it clear that things were becoming more serious. When Nick called me, asking about when I would be driving back home so we could start packing for our approaching vacation, I told him with a heavy heart that I was having second thoughts about going on vacation. I explained that my mom's health was rapidly declining, and I wasn't sure if it was the right time for me to leave her. Nick didn't take this well. He snapped, telling me that a 1-week vacation wasn't going to kill my mother, and that he needed to spend time with me too. He went on to tell me how I always prioritized my disabled mother over him and how he felt neglected. His words hit me hard, and I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. He was right in a way. I was his wife and our relationship was important. He needed me just as much as my parents did, and I could understand why he was upset. But at the same time, the thought of leaving my mom when she was so sick filled me with dread. I couldn't shake the fear that something terrible might happen while I was away, and if it did, I knew I would never forgive myself. How could I relax and have fun when my heart was back home, filled with worry and guilt? However, I didn't want to fight with Nick. I tried to calm him down and reassured him that I would come home in the next 2 days so we could go on the vacation as planned. When I finally mustered up the courage to tell my mom that I would have to leave in a day or two to go to my husband, she immediately started begging me to stay, her voice trembling with a fear and vulnerability that I had never heard from her before. She kept telling me how scared she was of losing me, how she could feel something was wrong with her. I felt scared hearing that. Even my dad, who had always been the stronger one, seemed deeply concerned. The fear in his eyes mirrored my own, and it was clear to me that they both needed me more than ever. At that moment, I knew what I had to do. I could always go on a vacation with my husband later, but I couldn't replace this time with my mom when she needed me the most. Later that night, I broke the news to Nick. I firmly told him that I would be staying with my parents and that I would be canceling the vacation. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I hoped he would understand. Instead, he yelled at me, accusing my mom of being selfish for asking me to stay. He told me I was making a huge mistake and that I would regret this decision. I tried to reason with him, pleading for his understanding. I told him that if his parents were ever going through something like this, I would never prioritize a vacation over their well-being. I would have been by his side, supporting him through every step of the way, just as I needed to support my mom now. But no matter how much I tried to explain, Nick wasn't ready to understand. He kept saying that I was simply sacrificing away our vacation for absolutely no reason. It broke my heart to see him like this, so angry and unwilling to see my side of things. But I knew deep down that staying with my mom was the right thing to do. And as much as I wished Nick could understand the depth of my decision, I also had to accept that he might not, at least not right now. However, Nick made things between us even worse by asking me not to cancel the reservations. He went on to tell me that he was going to go to the resort without me. My heart sank as I processed his words. Confused, I asked him if he was sure, if he would be comfortable spending a week alone at the resort we had planned to visit together for our anniversary. I thought maybe he was just saying it out of frustration and hadn't really thought it through. But then he told me that he wouldn't be alone, since he would be inviting his female coworker, Bella, to join him instead. My mind raced as I tried to absorb what he was saying. For context, Bella was his subordinate at work, a woman 7 years younger than him whom he had known for only 2 years. I knew they were close, but I had never worried about their relationship before. Nick had always been open with me about his friendship with her. At work parties, I would see them laughing together and sharing inside jokes, and I had never felt threatened by their connection. Even when I heard that Bella referred to herself as Nick's work wife, I didn't give it much thought. I figured it was just a harmless crush, the kind of workplace flirtation that didn't mean anything. But never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that Nick would suggest taking Bella on a vacation that was meant to celebrate our marriage, our anniversary. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nick went on to tell me that he wasn't going to throw away his vacation time just because I had decided not to go with him. I pointed out to him how wildly inappropriate it was to take a coworker, especially one who was his subordinate, on a vacation that was supposed to be for us. But Nick argued that I was basically abandoning him, so he had no other choice left. He said he needed a break from work and knew Bella would be there for him. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt like he was punishing me for doing what I felt was right. I couldn't believe the man I married, the man I loved, was saying these things to me. It wasn't just about the vacation anymore. It was about our entire relationship, about the vows we had taken to stand by each other through thick and thin. How had we come to this point where he would rather go on a vacation with a coworker than support me in one of the most difficult times of my life? I spent the entire night worrying about our future. I realized that my marriage was in serious trouble. Nick's decision to go on this vacation with Bella wasn't just a sign of his frustration. It was a sign that something was deeply wrong between us. The next day, when Nick demanded again that I call the hotel and change the reservation to include Bella instead of me, I yelled back at him, telling him that if he was really set on going through with this, then he needed to make these changes himself. I wasn't going to help him erase me from our plans. After the call, I sent him all the booking details and then collapsed into tears, feeling utterly defeated. As I cried, I must have been louder than I realized because my dad came to check on me. He gently asked if everything was okay and assured me that if I needed to go back home, he would take care of Mom. I shook my head, still crying, and told him that I wanted to stay. If Nick was really going through with this, what was the point of me going back? The thought of returning to a house where I was clearly not valued, where my husband had chosen someone else over me, was unbearable. It felt like the life I had known, the life I had worked so hard to build, was falling apart. In the end, Nick did end up going to the resort with Bella. From the resort, he even had the audacity to post multiple pictures online. Images of them drinking cocktails, watching the sunset together, hiking together. The sight of him smiling with her in the photos, in the very place we were to celebrate our anniversary, made me feel sick. Soon, I started getting messages from some friends and cousins who also followed Nick on social media, who had seen the photos with him and this woman, asking if everything was okay between Nick and me. Their concern was genuine, but it only deepened my sense of humiliation. It was as if the private pain I was experiencing had been dragged out into the open for everyone to see. I felt sick, ashamed, and utterly confused. Clearly, Nick was knowingly humiliating me. I tried my best to convince myself that maybe nothing inappropriate was happening between Nick and Bella, that they were just relaxing and enjoying the break. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, I knew in my heart that what Nick was doing was wrong on so many levels. It wasn't just the possibility of something sexual happening. It was the sheer indecency of it all, the betrayal, the disregard for our marriage, and the way he was punishing me for not going with him. The realization that the person I had devoted my life to could be so uncaring, so spiteful, was shattering. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, life dealt me the most crushing blow. It was just 3 days after Nick had left for our vacation with Bella, and I was still trying to process the betrayal, when in the middle of the night my mother passed away. My dad found her in the morning, and the sound of his heart-wrenching cries broke through my sleep like a nightmare come to life. I rushed to see what had happened, and when I saw her lifeless and peaceful, I fell to my knees. She had been suffering long enough, and the only solace I could find in that moment of utter devastation was that she had passed away in her sleep without further suffering. With her, I felt like a part of me had died. My dad somehow managed to collect himself enough to call the ambulance and begin making the necessary funeral arrangements. I was numb and disconnected from reality throughout all this. The pain was so deep, so all-consuming, that I couldn't think or function. I don't know how he did it. The only thing I could think to do was call Nick. I was desperate to hear his voice, to find some comfort in the person who was supposed to be my partner in life. Through my tears, I dialed his number, praying he would pick up and be there for me in this darkest moment. But he didn't answer, not once. I called him over and over, leaving message after message, pleading for him to call me back as it was urgent. But there was nothing, no response. My husband couldn't even be bothered to pick up the phone when I needed him the most. After my mom passed away, my friends and family rallied around me. They were there for me during the funeral, offering their support and love. But I was barely aware of anything that was happening. I remember spending hours in my mom's room, lying on her bed, unable to move or face the world. I was too depressed to even check on my dad, who was grieving in his own way. I had lost my mother, and she was never coming back. Despite all the pain and grief, I couldn't shake the thought that I had made the right decision by staying with my mom in her last days. The universe had guided me to be there with her, and for that I was grateful. I couldn't imagine the regret I would have felt if I had actually left her to go on that vacation. When I finally mustered the strength to open my social media to check on Nick, since he had still not called me back, what I saw confirmed my worst fears. Nick had posted more pictures from the resort, smiling and enjoying himself with Bella, while I was mourning the loss of my mother. He hadn't even bothered checking in on me, not once. As I stared at those pictures, it became painfully clear how little I mattered to him. It was like a knife twisting in my already shattered heart. The weight of everything, the loss of my mother, the betrayal by my husband, was unbearable. But as I lay in my mother's bed, surrounded by the memories of her love and wisdom, something inside me shifted. My mother had always been my guide, the one who taught me to stand tall, respect myself, and never settle for less than I deserved. In that moment of clarity, I realized then that I could never look at Nick the same way again. His actions over the past few days had shown me who he truly was, and it was someone I no longer recognized or could respect. I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my life constantly questioning my choices and punishing me for them. I also could not trust him any longer and didn't want to torture myself with thoughts of whether he had slept with Bella or not. Those things didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the realization that the man I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen to spend our 5th wedding anniversary sipping cocktails with another woman while I was burying my mother. The next day, with a heavy but resolute heart, I drove back to our house. I went from room to room, packing up my things, making sure to take everything that held any meaning to me. I wanted to be gone before Nick returned from his vacation with Bella. The thought of facing him, of hearing whatever excuses he might offer, was something I couldn't bear. I packed quickly and left a note behind, telling him to enjoy his life with his work wife, since I was done with him. Driving back to my parents' place, I felt a mix of sorrow and resolve. My heart was heavy with grief, but for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of strength. I was reclaiming my life, even if it meant starting over from scratch. Nick had made his choice, and now I was making mine. After Nick returned home, he must have noticed my things were gone. I can only imagine his shock when he read my note and realized that I had packed up and left while he was away. It didn't take long for him to start calling me, the phone ringing constantly, as if he could somehow undo everything with a few words. I knew my cousins had reached out to him, sending angry text messages about how poorly he had treated me by going on a vacation with his coworker, while my mother had sadly passed away. He sent me multiple texts saying he had no idea, and that he should have been there for me. He's been begging me to call him back. Nick's apologies now feel empty, like he's saying them just because he's finally facing the fallout from his actions. But where was this concern when I needed him? Where was his remorse when I was calling him heartbroken and grieving, only to be met with silence? It's obvious to me now that his guilt is more about the backlash he's getting from others than any real understanding of the pain he's caused. AITA for leaving my husband after he spent our 5th anniversary with his coworker? Date 1. So, To clarify, the reason I didn't want to talk to my husband first before taking the step to leave him was because there was nothing left to talk about. I can't trust him any longer. Even if he slept with Bella or not, he did this only to punish and hurt me. That's it. What else is there to discuss about this? Some of you are right that I am being emotional and making rash decisions, but how many of your partners have spent their wedding anniversary with their coworkers and posted about it while you were grieving your mother's death? He doesn't have any sense of loyalty or respect for me, so why should I spend the rest of my life with him? Update 2. Thank you to those people who have reached out to me with words of comfort since my last update. I did talk to my dad about it and told him about everything. I wanted his opinion on whether or not I was really making the right decision to leave my husband. He loves Nick just as much as he loves me, so I knew he would not be afraid to call me out if he thought I was making a mistake. My dad agreed that what Nick did was unforgivable, but also pointed out that I needed to talk to my husband and get to the bottom of this. My dad believes that Nick has been having an affair with Bella and has urged me to find out the truth so I can get some kind of closure. Hence, I have finally reached out to Nick and asked to meet with him one last time. Update 3. Long story short, my dad and everyone else were right about Nick. He did have an emotional affair going on with Bella. He confessed to me during our conversation that although they never did anything physical, he had grown very close to her over time. He basically blamed me for always neglecting him and how he never became my first priority even after marriage. I argued back, reminding him of our regular date nights, the dinners I cooked for him, the conversations we had every evening about our lives, how I did his laundry exactly the way he liked, and how I cleaned the house even when I was exhausted after work because he didn't like the house being messy or disorganized, how I even bought him expensive gifts while he would only give awful and inconsiderate gifts in return. So how, I asked, did I ever neglect him when I wasn't the one having an emotional affair with her coworker? Nick had no answer to my question. He admitted that taking Bella on the vacation was his way of messing with me and making me feel bad. He assured me that nothing ever happened between them, but I didn't believe him. He begged for forgiveness and almost broke down, apologizing for not being there for me during my mother's funeral, but I didn't even flinch. Life is too short to stay married to someone who is this childish and immature. I'm going ahead with the divorce as planned. We don't have kids, so this is going to be straightforward. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Crazy Amiel told me to divorce my husband because she showed up at our home unannounced and saw her poor baby cooking by himself while I was attending my mother's funeral out of state. 2 weeks ago, my mother unfortunately passed away from a sudden heart attack, and I had to go back home to be there for my dad and help arrange her funeral. It was very difficult for us, especially since I hadn't seen her for the past couple of months, as my family lives in a different state. So, I had decided to stay with my dad after the funeral for a couple of days, and I had told my husband about it as well, and he was obviously fine with it. After the funeral, he and his parents flew back home since he couldn't stay back with me as he had work. For the last couple of days, my husband has been living on his own, and he's a grown man so he can handle it. But 4 days ago, my mother-in-law decided to visit him, which is not surprising because she does that quite often. But she actually saw him cooking for the first time, and she completely lost her mind. According to her, her poor baby should never be anywhere near the kitchen because she thinks it's a dangerous place and doesn't believe that he is equipped for it. To be fair to her, she has never seen her son cook before because I've never let him, and since I'm not here, he's been cooking for himself occasionally. The only reason I don't let him cook is because he's not very good at it, if I'm being frank. We have been together for 5 years and married for 2. Throughout our relationship, ever since we moved in together, I've been the one who has been doing all the cooking, and he handles all the other chores. It's a fair trade-off, and we are both fine with it since I actually enjoy cooking, and it's a far more preferable alternative than having to have the food cooked by him. Because even though he follows all the recipes and stuff, it still doesn't turn out well, and, some people just don't have the knack for it. It's not a male/female thing with us. It's more about who can do it better, and that's who actually does it. Like, I'm terrible with electronics and stuff, so he handles it for the most part. As a married couple, I think it's cute because we complete each other. Anyway, you guys get it, but I don't think that my mother-in-law does, especially given how she reacted when she found out that my husband had been cooking for himself in my absence. Apparently, when she was visiting him and he opened the door wearing an apron, She immediately started acting like the world as she knew it had come to an end. It was a gross overreaction, if I'm being honest, because, come on, it's insane in this day and age. She thinks that women should arrange for all the food that their husband consumes. What is even crazier is that she decided to call me afterward and straight up told me that I needed to divorce my husband because I was obviously not a good wife to him if he had been cooking for himself. My mother-in-law has always been a bit crazy and orthodox. She has very strange views on things, and we have never really gotten along. But I love my husband, and he loves his family, so I have learned to put up with her. I haven't changed my ways or anything for her. And because her son loves me unconditionally, she doesn't say anything to me either. In the beginning of our relationship itself, we had come to a place of mutual respect where I did not question her beliefs and opinions, and she did not question my behavior and decisions and stuff. But this was the first incident where she reached out to me directly and told me that she did not approve of this and wanted me to come back and apologize to my husband, or else she would like me to divorce him because she couldn't stand the fact that her poor baby was having to cook for himself just because I wanted to spend time with my family. I thought it was psychotic of her to say something like that, but I wasn't surprised that this was her take on the situation. It was really insensitive because my mother had just recently passed away, and I was still grieving her, so of course I wanted to be there for my father. Besides, even if my mother hadn't passed away, it was my call whether I wanted to spend time with my family or not, and if my husband was okay with it, I didn't think I needed to consult with her as well. So we ended up getting into a fight, and I told her that her son is not a baby. He's a grown man, and he can handle living on his own. If she thinks that he shouldn't be cooking for himself, I would gladly let her take over the cooking duties and make sure that her poor baby is fed in my absence. But unless she's willing to do that, then she should just keep her mouth shut. She started arguing against that, saying that since her son is married now, it's my duty to take care of him and make sure that he's doing well, and as his mother, she's obviously going to be looking out for him, and she doesn't think that I'm good enough for him. Words were exchanged, and the conversation got quite heated after a while, but I don't want to waste my energy speaking for somebody who I knew was never going to see eye to eye with me. So I just hung up after a while and blocked her. I tried to cool off, but it was too difficult because of how insanely stupid and insensitive my mother-in-law had been while speaking to me. I tried to call my husband to talk to him, but he couldn't respond at the time because he was napping, and he's quite a heavy sleeper. So I ended up calling my father-in-law to tell him what had happened and basically just keep his wife in check because he is the only person she always listens to. I don't know if it's because of her beliefs regarding how women should be subservient to their husbands or if she actually respects him for who he is, but regardless of the reason, anytime her husband tells her not to say certain things in front of us or do certain things, she doesn't do it. He's a pretty reasonable guy, and honestly, he's the biggest part of the reason why my husband and I have still maintained touch with his family because regardless of how my mother-in-law acts, he is still a good person. I called him and I told him everything, and he reacted exactly how I had expected him to. He told me that he would look into it because he knew exactly how his wife could be about things like this. He told me that I didn't have to pay any attention to her or what she said, and I knew that, but it's just the fact that she had made me seem like a terrible wife simply because of something like this, and that had really gotten under my skin. Ever since I had been introduced to my husband's family, I had tried my best to be respectful of my mother-in-law, and so far, even she had succeeded in trying to keep her opinions out of our relationship and respect the fact that her son loved me. This was the first time that a confrontation like this was happening, but I wanted this to be the last time as well, and I know that speaking to my father-in-law would be the only way to ensure that. But I didn't know that he would go out of his way to give her a taste of her own medicine. Because ever since I made that phone call, my father-in-law has been treating her very differently, in the sense that he has been making her do all the household chores, has made her delete her social media, and basically just treating her the way she believes that other women should be treated in a marriage. I learned about it from my husband, who called me later on that day and told me that after my phone call, his father had confronted his mother about whatever she had said to me, and she had refused to even act like she was sorry about it and said that I was actually a terrible wife because her son was having to cook for himself. My father-in-law had tried really hard to explain that it wasn't a big deal, but she refused and kept saying that I needed to leave her son alone so he could find somebody better who was more worthy of a relationship with him. Eventually, he just lost it and started telling his wife that now she had to play by her own rules and be the ideal wife according to her all these ancient traditions that she wanted to follow. And that basically meant that she had to delete her social media because her husband did not want her socializing with anybody and everybody. She could use the telephone to contact her friends and stay in touch with them, but she was not allowed to spend more than an hour on the phone with them. That was going to be a huge problem for her because her favorite hobby itself is gossiping and judging everyone else on the phone with her friends for hours. But she wouldn't even get enough time to worry about it because my father-in-law had decided that since she thinks that a woman should be completely subservient to her husband and do everything for him, she should be living by the same rules as well. And he had told her to start doing all the household chores, and by all of them he meant literally all of them, from the laundry to the cleaning to the cooking and everything. He had even suspended the services of the housekeeper that they had for a couple of days so that his wife would get to know exactly how her life would have been if her husband had the same opinions that she did. And on one hand, I think it's completely fair that she's been treated like this because that's what she wanted for me. But on the other hand, I feel kind of bad for her because she's living the life that I dread. I mean, of course, she has an easy way out. My father-in-law has told her that she can just apologize to me for everything, and he will hire the housekeeper again. But she refuses to do so and says that she's ready to do whatever it takes to prove that she's right because she knows that she is. And she thinks it's good that she is being forced to go back to the kind of life that she used to have when my husband was younger because it's keeping her honest and preventing her from becoming lazy like the women of our generation. So, you see, I'm kind of conflicted about whether I did the right thing or not since on one hand, I really don't think that whatever she thinks and believes about women is healthy, but on the other, I don't really think that this is the right way to go about it either, especially because she is in her late 50s and has severe back problems, so this can't be good for her health either. But she just refuses to apologize to me and be done with it. It's just a very weird situation that we are in right now, and I feel kind of guilty, but my husband keeps telling me not to, and yet I can't help it. So, ITA for telling my father-in-law to keep his wife in check after she told me that I should divorce her son because he was having to cook for himself? Edit. So, first things first, my husband also does not agree with the kind of opinions that my mother-in-law has, and he has tried to change it several times. But as you guys already know, she's very stubborn and refuses to listen to anybody else who doesn't have the same beliefs as she does. And it's very exhausting to keep fighting with somebody close to you over the same things again and again. So my husband decided to stop talking to her about these things after a while. He still had to maintain a relationship with his mother because otherwise, she would just keep guilt-tripping him, and he didn't want that. And after he started dating me, he knew that she would not approve of the kind of person that I am because I'm quite outspoken and strong-headed, and she would want somebody a little softer for her son. But he had made it very clear to her before he even introduced me to his family. He did not want her speaking to me about any of her skewed opinions, and if she did, then he would cut her off forever. Neither did he want her imposing those opinions on me after we got married, and so far she had managed to do it, which is why we had stayed in touch with her. Besides, we just didn't want to get into any drama, and I think that was a valid reason for us not to cut her off. I can understand most people would say that we should have cut her out of our lives, but it's not that easy. Families are not just black and white, and it's important to understand that. And a lot of people had also been questioning why exactly my father-in-law had been with his wife for so long if he had wildly different opinions, and, well, I don't know what to say to that. I guess crazy things happen to people, and even though my father-in-law had always known that she was this kind of person, he had put up with it because he loved her, just like my mother-in-law had put up with me because she loved her son. I think it's like the same thing. But right now, both of them are getting older, and it's more difficult to put up with somebody else's BS at this age, so maybe that's why he's punishing her the way that he is. Whatever it is, I hope this answers why we hadn't cut her off or why my father-in-law had still chosen to stay with her for so many years, since that's what most of you had been very confused about. Update 1. Hey, so 1 week has passed since I had that fight with my mother-in-law, and she has been living according to her own rules since then. She has refused to apologize to me, so my father-in-law refuses to go back on his word. And after reading the comments, I don't think that I did anything wrong anymore. I think that this is perfectly well-deserved, and she can deal with it since she expects everybody else to. I had been discussing it with my husband back and forth ever since that incident took place, and he told me that he hadn't been on speaking terms with his mother as well after that day because he did not appreciate the way she had behaved with me, and even he had made it very clear to her that he was not going to speak to her unless she apologized to me. But even that had not moved her. She had said that this was the last straw, that the last thing that she ever wanted to see was her son cooking for himself in the kitchen, so now she would do whatever it took. But she would prove that she was right and make sure that I was not a part of the family anymore, at least on her watch. Good for her. She can keep trying to prove that she's right, but it's not going to harm anybody apart from her anymore. Anyway, last evening, I finally decided to come back to my husband because my dad had his brother to take care of him now, and it was very difficult for me to leave him behind. But he told me that I had to go back to work and stuff, so he couldn't expect me to stay with him forever, and that was really nice of him. So I came back, and my husband was overjoyed to see me after so long, and for the first time in weeks, we discussed things in person. Eventually, we got to talking about his mother again, and he told me that she had been having a lot of trouble with her back and stuff, but even then, she refused to acknowledge that she had been wrong and that it was unfair of her to expect me to do everything for her son, especially since both of us were adults and we were fine with the kind of arrangement that we had. So she had absolutely no business speaking to me about whether I should be cooking for him all the time or not, and she definitely did not have the right to tell me that I was not a good wife and that I should divorce him. He also told me that his dad had been feeling bad about what he was putting his wife through, but he had made up his mind that he was not going to back down until she apologized to me because for years he had put up with her outdated opinions and beliefs, but now it was getting out of hand. Initially, she would just say things about women, and that was outrageous enough, but at least she wouldn't act on anything and go out of her way to control things around her. But I guess with age, she was slowly losing the capacity to understand what was right and what was wrong, and she was just doing whatever came to her mind and seemed right in the moment. I wouldn't call it senility because she's just in her 50s. I don't think that's even possible, but there's definitely something off about this whole stubborn and weird behavior of hers because right now she's not even willing to listen to her own husband, which, according to her, is not the way women should behave. Anyway, my point is that I refuse to feel guilty for anything that she's going through anymore. She brought this on herself and now she can deal with it. Update 2. So I decided to visit my father-in-law with my husband because we hadn't seen each other for a really long time, and it has been a couple of days since I returned, so I decided to drop by. Of course, my mother-in-law was the one who opened the door to us, and as soon as she saw me, she told me that I was not allowed to enter the house. My husband obviously lost his temper and told her that she needed to cut it out because we were here to see his father and not her. She refused to even step aside and stood blocking the doorway until my father-in-law came along and said that it was his house, his name on the deed of the house, and so if he wanted me to come inside, then she had no right to stop me. Then she started arguing with him and said that she had an equal role to play here because even though it was legally his house, she had been living here for ages, and she was a member of the family as well. And then my father-in-law told her that she herself had said that they were not on equal footing because she believed that women should be worshipping their husbands and obeying everything that they said without question. And that's not what she was doing at the moment. It was then that she completely lost it and started freaking out at all of us. She grabbed a glass and smashed it to bits on the ground, and we all had to back up a little bit because she was raging out loud. First, she started yelling at her husband and told him that she couldn't believe that instead of taking her side. He was siding with me, and it was incredibly wrong of him to do that because she only wanted the best for her son. And it was not just her son. My husband was his child as well, and he should not be so blind to his kid's misery. What misery she was referring to, I have no idea since my husband is pretty happy with me. Anyway, she went on yelling at my father-in-law and told him that she was absolutely done with him because in spite of the fact that she had completely devoted herself to him, he still seemed to be taking my side over hers for no reason. Apparently, it was her belief that even if she was wrong, her husband should still be by her side because that's what a marriage means. I must say, she has a very twisted idea of what it means to be married. Then it was my husband's turn to be yelled at by his mother because she was completely losing it, and it was very obvious. When it came to him, she literally started screaming like a banshee and told him that she had only wanted the best for him, but instead of being grateful for her and how much she cared for him, he had not even bothered to check up on her for the last couple of days and was acting as if she was the villain in the situation. She told him that she regretted ever agreeing to allow him to marry me, and I could see my husband looking very, very confused because he had never asked for her permission. He had only ever told her not to behave badly with me, and that was it. He even tried to tell her that he had never asked for her permission, but she cut him off and told him that it didn't matter. She would have made sure that the wedding wouldn't have happened without her consent, and now she regretted letting it take place. And then finally, it was my turn. If I'm being frank with you guys, as soon as she looked at me and she screamed, "You!" I had a very strong urge to laugh in her face because it was so dramatic and unnecessarily villainous. Also, while she was screaming at me, she kept making really weird faces, and it was very funny, but it stopped being funny as soon as she got all up in my face, and I'm not even kidding. She was so close that I could actually smell her breath. So I just put my arm in front of me so she would be gently forced to back up a little. But instead of backing up, she decided to retaliate at my harmless gesture and shoved me. And I guess she used all her strength to shove me because I fell back pretty hard and lost my balance, so I ended up on the ground. Luckily, I was not hurt too badly, but I was really angry. No matter how much she hated me, she had absolutely no right to turn into physical altercations. And even though I had been amused until that point, I started yelling back at her after she shoved me. Even my husband was quite upset, and as he was helping me up to my feet, he kept arguing with her, and she kept saying that I was apparently going to shove her, which is why I had raised my arm to place it in between us even though I had just done that so she would back up a little, and I had no intention of hurting her, but she did. While she and my husband were arguing in the heat of the moment, I ended up saying to him that it was not even worth it to speak to her because it was very obvious that she had been against me right from the first day, and now her true colors were just coming to the surface. Then I told him that it was a pity that she was his mother because even though she kept claiming that she loved him and was doing everything out of love for him because she wanted the best for him, it all seemed like a bunch of BS because everything that she did was just to prove herself right, not out of love. I guess that really ticked her off because as soon as I said it, she literally charged at me and my husband had to push her back, and my father-in-law had to restrain her physically because she had started to kick and scream, and it was very obvious that all she wanted to do was hurt me. She kept cursing at me and was acting all hysterical, so my husband and I decided to leave because it was very obvious that we were not wanted here, and at the moment that was the best thing for us to do. My father-in-law also insisted that we leave so he could deal with the situation, and so we went away. But even after we had left, we were still very worried about what was going on. So a couple of hours later, we decided to call my father-in-law and ask him what had happened after we left and also make sure that he was doing fine. When we called, he picked up the phone, and he sounded a little exhausted but all right otherwise. And then he told us that after we left, he had taken his wife inside and gotten her to sit down and calm down. But even after she had stopped acting crazy, she continued to curse at me and said that she was going to make sure that we got a divorce. How she planned on doing that, we don't know. Anyway, my father-in-law had had enough of this, and after she had calmed down, he decided to leave the room and called her brother. He told his brother-in-law everything about what was going on with him and especially how crazy his wife is acting. So her brother came by, and even though she didn't want to go with him, she had to leave. Her brother also had a similar kind of upbringing and initially used to be quite orthodox and regressive like her, but he has since changed, mostly because he got married, and now even though he does not agree with the way that his sister thinks, he still decided to come to pick her up so she could spend a few days with her brother and his wife, and I think a little bit of space right now is very necessary. My father-in-law told me that he really loves his wife, but whatever she has been doing of late and the way she has been acting, it's not acceptable and he cannot stand for it. So after spending a few days apart, when she finally comes back home, he's going to tell her that she needs to get help, and if she refuses, then they are going to get divorced. They have spent many years together, slightly more than 3 decades, so that's a huge deal, but I think it's for the best for her own good. I hope she realizes that she has a problem and she needs to get with the times, or else nobody will be there for her anymore. Even my own husband thinks that his parents getting divorced would be the right thing to happen in case his mother refuses to change her ways, but even then, she is still going to be given a chance to change herself, and I really hope she takes it. Update 3. Hi. So almost a month has passed since my last update, and a lot of things have changed. I guess I had mentioned that my father-in-law had sent his wife away to live with her brother and his family so she could calm down a little and reevaluate her priorities. She came back to him after a week, and he told her that now either she could apologize to me, agree to get help, and just fix her behavior in general, or he would be forced to file for a divorce. They fought for a couple of days, but eventually, she agreed to get help, but she said that she still needed some time before she apologized to me. So she has been getting professional help, and about 5 days ago, she sent me a really long email to apologize to me as well. It's not as if my husband and I haven't seen her in the recent past before that apology. We see her around every time that we visit my father-in-law, but we had stopped acknowledging each other's existence. However, after the apology that she sent, when my husband and I went over for dinner to my FIL's house, she did say that she was very sorry about everything to us in person as well, and that's a start. I don't know if it will get better or not, but it's still a start. Anyway, my husband and I are going strong together, and even my father has started doing better. He has taken up a bunch of new hobbies to keep himself occupied, and my husband and I are planning on visiting him in a couple of days as well. So things are well at the moment, and I hope they get better. Now on to the next story. Story 10. My sister was our surrogate, but now she's trying to steal our baby and my husband. Okay, so for context, my husband is James, 39, I'm F, 29, and my sister is Tilly, 30. When my husband and I found out I wouldn't be able to carry a baby, my sister offered to be our surrogate so we could still have a biological child. She did this totally unprompted and on her own. She had divorced her husband over a year ago and was settling into single life. We offered to cover all medical expenses and expenses for anything that could improve her life/pregnancy quality, as it's not legal to pay for a surrogate in my country. She was more than happy to do that, and as time went on, she said she didn't like pregnancy. It freaked her out and she couldn't wait to just give the baby to us and go on holiday. So 3 days ago, she gave birth to our daughter. She's perfect and such a beautiful baby, and we were getting ready to take her home when Tilly denied it. She said I couldn't have my baby. I was really confused and asked what was wrong. What did she mean? She said she'd changed her mind and didn't want to give us our baby. I reminded her she wasn't biologically a parent to my daughter and reminded her that she hated pregnancy and wanted to go on holiday. She said no, wouldn't let me hold my baby, and made the nurse take me out. Since then, I've been crying and really upset. Our parents are trying to get her to see sense, and none of it made any sense to me until James sat me down and showed me texts he had been getting from her for the past few weeks. They started out innocent, but then she said how horny the pregnancy was making her. He sent back a laughing emoji, but she carried on and propositioned him, asking him if he was attracted to the woman carrying his baby, saying surely it made him feel some way. She sent some risky photos of her in lingerie, and he told her to stop. She wasn't his wife. He wouldn't mention anything as none of us needed more stress. But this wasn't appropriate. Since then, I've been looking over the contract we had drawn up, and there is a clause that allows me to gain custody by showing Tilly's written agreement and understanding of our contract to a judge. I've texted Tilly telling her she has a day to give me my baby or I will take her to court to enforce the contract and get custody of my child. Our cousins have texted me saying I'm an a-hole for pressuring a woman to give her baby up, but it's my baby, not hers. Edit. If I'm honest, it feels like emotional manipulation. She's had no feelings or attachment to the baby literally the whole pregnancy. She said she only did it so she could get the private health care. The holiday she's going on was paid by us. Anything she wanted during pregnancy, food, clothes, DIYs, and a hairdryer, we got her. We sent her on wellness weekends. She admitted she wanted some pampering after the divorce and knew we would give that to the woman housing our baby. Update 1. My sister was our surrogate, but now she's trying to steal our baby and my husband. Just thought I'd give a little update as lots of people were using the update bot. We gave Tilly 24 hours before we started the legal proceedings to give us our baby. I've been into work today to keep my mind busy, as I was so nervous, and I work in a hospital so it's kept my mind busy, whereas James is able to work from home. It's been so hard the past few days not having our daughter with us. We'd imagined being able to spend the first few days of her life together as a family, getting in all the newborn skin-to-skin contact, but instead we've just been looking at her empty nursery. When I got home from work, James told me that the maternity facility had been in contact to say my sister and our baby had been discharged. He didn't want to worry me when I was at work and had been trying to find them, but it had only happened about an hour before I got home. Then 2 hours later, someone knocks on our door and it's Tilly, holding our baby. She gives her to me and just shrugs and says sorry, but that it wasn't her fault. She was attracted to the man whose baby she was carrying, but that she'd forgotten how much newborns cry and need to be fed, and said she wasn't the mother. She left quickly after that, after giving us the final legal form with her signature on it. Safe to say, we've just been soaking in having our baby with us finally. We've been able to put her in the clothes we'd gotten her. We put her down in her crib and fed her a bottle, And most importantly, we've had so many cuddles. We haven't really put her down, and I feel a bit scared too, like she can be taken away again. She's beautiful and she's perfect, and her name is Alexandria Renee. Update 2. My sister was our surrogate, but now she's trying to steal our baby and my husband. I am aware how insane this title is, but hear me out. It's me, F28, my husband Lucas, 39, and my younger half-sister, Dad's side, Leah, 24. My husband and I met through work 5 years ago but didn't date right away. We tied the knot by eloping 2 years ago, as I predicted Leah would cause wedding drama. Leah herself had a failed engagement 1 year ago. We gave her our condolences, but she said if I really cared, I would stop wearing my engagement ring around her, flaunting it. I obviously did not take it off. It's a vintage ring that is an heirloom in Lucas's family. I'm now 5 months pregnant with a baby girl. She wasn't planned, but she's a very welcome surprise. Lucas is so excited to be a girl dad. It's very funny. Ever since I announced my pregnancy, it wasn't a fancy thing, just over dinner. Leah has been very snippy and standoffish with me. Fine, it didn't really affect me, we're not close. But then I noticed when we'd go to visit my dad or are at family gatherings, she's very touchy with Lucas. She giggles at every joke he makes. Doesn't really bother me. I'm secure in my marriage, and if anything, it makes her look silly. We had a blended family event with both mom and dad's side, and we were discussing baby names when Leah freaked out, screeching at me that she's the one who deserves a husband and a baby, not me. I never wanted marriage or kids. I was focused on getting a career, and stormed off. Later on, my dad and his wife said she shouldn't have shouted, but I was flaunting my marriage and pregnancy when I know she had a failed engagement and had always wanted a baby. I thought that was it, but yesterday the 3 of them asked to talk, and they came over to our hours and they legitimately asked if I would give Leah my baby. Like, they weren't joking, they said it seriously. They said she deserved it more than me, as she wouldn't neglect being a mother for a career. Lucas was stunned, but then promptly got them out of our house. I heard Leah clinging to his arm, telling him she could be a good stay-at-home mom. My mom and her side of the family are furious. Leah's mom said it was malicious of me to tell my mom's family and that I had really upset Leah when we eloped. So I had to make it up to her and that my mom doesn't get a say. What the actual hell? Edit. Just to address some things, yes, unfortunately this is real and it happens often. Look up the case of Taylor Parker. This whole thing is really stressful. I'm immunocompromised, so I'm really feeling run down and have to be careful. Lastly, Lucas is actually Swedish, so that is an option to those of you who have suggested moving. Update 3. My sister was our surrogate, but now she's trying to steal our baby and my husband. Hi guys, just wanted to give you all an update as you asked for it. I saw it made it onto a TikTok podcast, which was amusing. If someone wants to pass them this update along, please do. Point 1. Obviously, I'm not actually asking if I should give Leah my baby. I was venting. Sorry if I put it in the wrong sub. Lucas and I are in Sweden right now on vacation and have explored the possibility of moving here. He works for a Swedish company in the US anyway, so it would just be a case of moving, and my work is fluid. I can pick up a job in most countries. I've asked my mom if she would think about coming with us. We would help set her up and make sure she was looked after. In this way, she can see her grandbaby whenever, rather than being an ocean apart. Leah is fuming, apparently sulking and being an all-around awful person. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Ex-husband who cheated on me refused to let our 8-year-old daughter attend my wedding as a flower girl, then violently shook her when she cried about missing it. My husband, 37M, and I, 37F, have been divorced for 6 years now. We have 2 daughters, Emily, 16F, and Gabby, 8F, and we're happily married for 10 years. My husband cheated on me with a freshman in college and left me for her. It was hard for me. I was in so much emotional pain. It wasn't just his cheating, but also how he said he hates me and that I looked ugly. He even said something on the line like I was not as tight as I used to be. You can imagine my pain. It gave me some serious trust issues. I couldn't forget what he said to me during our divorce. Emily knew why we divorced, and she held some resentment towards her father for that. Gabby was too young at that time. Nonetheless, he was a shy husband but a good father to both of them. We shared custody. The girls would be with me from Friday to Monday. I tried my best, but from time to time I would spiral. I have been in and out of therapy since my divorce. I met my now husband, Ben, 41M, 4 years ago. We met because we worked in the same building, and I was crying on the roof of the office building. Ben was there too. When he saw me, he asked me what happened, and I just bawled my eyes out because that day was my wedding anniversary, and that was the same day my ex decided that he would get married to his AP. Ben listened to my concerns and stayed with me the whole day to make sure I was fine. He even dropped me to my house because I was too emotionally unstable to drive myself. From there, we started dating. He told me a story about how he lost his wife and only daughter 10 years ago in a car accident. He was really fond of my daughters as well. Emily has started to call him Dad after a year of us dating. Gabby also calls him Daddy Ben. I was finally healing and getting back to my old self. Ben was really nice and caring. We welcomed our son a year ago. My girls are happy to have a brother. He proposed to me when I was pregnant, and we had been planning for our wedding since then. Now here is the issue. Emily is one of my bridesmaids. Gabby is my flower girl. Emily is old enough to choose which parent she wants to live with, so there was no issue from her part. But Gabby was still going back and forth from my house to my ex's house. My wedding is in 2 weeks. My ex was fine with it. I spoke to him many times to make sure that he drives Gabby to my mother's place, but now he refuses. He says that he only gets to see his daughter 3 times a week, and he is not willing to give up his days for some party. I told him he could take my days for a week and let her be at the wedding. He says he will not let Gabby go. The wedding is on a Tuesday, which means Gabby would be with him. I cannot change the date because everything is booked. Please give me some advice. We have argued a lot, and I don't think I can go through any emotional pain with this ever again. Gabby would be heartbroken because she is really excited to be a flower girl. Update 1. It's been hectic since the last I posted. So, I mentioned in my last post that my ex-husband, with whom I share 2 children, Emily and Gabby. Emily lives with me now, but occasionally goes to her father's place. I made that post on a Wednesday. I went on Friday to pick up Gabby. My daughter Emily was pissed. I asked her what happened. She says that Gabby was throwing a tantrum because of some stupid lie their father has told Gabby that they will be going on a vacation on my wedding day. Gabby said no. She was excited to be my flower girl and threw a tantrum. I was furious. This coward man wanted to take my daughter away from me so that she is never my flower girl. I stomped my way into his house and demanded to see my daughter. My fiancé was with me. I demanded to see my daughter and said that he was a coward for not telling my daughter the real reason why she can't be at my wedding. My daughter rushed towards my fiancé, Ben. I told him to tell Gabby the truth. I was done with this man. I told him if he doesn't tell her, I will. I had the screenshots on my phone. I am surprised that he caved. Eventually, he told her the truth. Gabby was crying and saying that she hates him. My ex-husband was not having it. He took Gabby away from Ben and violently shook her body and called her a brat who doesn't appreciate her dad. I don't know what came on to me. I saw red and pushed my husband out of the way. He called me a beach, and his wife came out and tried to handle him. I got my daughter Gabby, but my husband wasn't letting me. He even got into a physical altercation with my fiancé. Emily was recording it from a distance. My ex kept shouting that he will not let my daughter go with him. I reminded him that this is my turn to have her, and he agreed that he would let my daughter stay with me until the wedding is over. I have the messages with me that he agreed to our agreement. He couldn't do anything, and we left. Upon arriving, Emily told me if it is possible to keep Gabby with us forever because she does not want to live with her dad. I asked why. Then she told me that her dad has been really angry ever since I started a relationship. It wasn't that extreme at first. Then he started insulting me behind my back, that how much I downgraded by dating Ben. It got even more agitated when he learned I was pregnant. He has been asking his wife to start having kids, and they had fights multiple times. It doesn't end there. Emily also mentions he would often lash out on Gabby and even scold her for making small mistakes. He even forced both of them to call his wife Mom, but Emily refused. She also said the only reason she ever goes back is she knows Gabby has to stay with him, and she is just protecting her. I cried and asked her why she didn't tell me. She responded that she saw how happy I was with Ben, so she didn't want it to burden me. I don't know what to say. I never wanted my daughter to take the burden. While I am happy that she tried to protect her sister, I feel disappointed in myself that I was so busy with my new life that I neglected my daughter. Whenever they came home, they were smiling, and I took that as a sign that everything was okay. I told Emily while I'm proud of her, she should have told me. She should have never taken it upon herself to save Gabby. I am their mother, and I will protect them from everything. I was going to let my daughter stay with my ex when I was on my honeymoon so that he would not cry about not spending enough time with his daughters. Now I am thinking otherwise. I don't know what to do. I am really stressed, and next week is my wedding. Any suggestions? Update 2. Hello guys. I took your suggestions and filed for emergency custody. I have also contacted a lawyer so that I can get full custody of Gabby. My daughter Emily is a key witness, and she does have the video saved. She is a smart girl. I am glad she saw the tension in the air and recorded it. I gave this to my lawyer. He did say I shouldn't have jumped on my ex, but it can be played as self-defense because he was hurting and scaring Gabby. I was able to get emergency custody. I was lucky that I got it in a short time. I will talk to my lawyer about full custody in detail. He said that given how he acted in the video evidence, along with a statement from Emily, I do have a strong case. But I know my ex, he will not give it up so easily, but neither am I. I am postponing my honeymoon until this matter is resolved. Even though this whole week has been stressful for me and everyone, I managed to cheer up Gabby. My family was really supportive. We did have a wedding, but I felt like some of the joy was stripped away from us because of this whole drama with my ex. But nonetheless, I felt really special on that day. My first marriage was rushed because I got pregnant, but this one felt right. I got to wear a gown and walk down the aisle. My daughters also enjoyed it a lot. I was glad my now husband Ben was there with me. I always had this insecurity in me that no man would want to be with me because I have so much baggage, but he stuck with me in my worst. As for my ex, he has lost cause. He has been sending me and my husband some hateful messages. He has been bad-mouthing me. We blocked him 2 days before my wedding. My ex-in-laws had a chat with me. My ex-MIL wanted me to drop the case and not take their grandkids away from their father. But I am glad ex-FIL stuck with me. He said that his own son is a danger to himself and his kids. He should not be allowed kids at all. My ex-MIL tried to argue, but ex-FIL shouted at her, "Do you care more about your pathetic son or the safety of your grandkids? At least someone gets it." And then there is my ex's wife, who has moved out of his house because she said, and I quote, "I am too good to be a stepmom of some ungrateful brats." I mean, she is still in her 20s, so I get her in some way. Also, some of you have asked why I booked a day that clashes with my custody date. Well, the venue we wanted was available on that day only. We already postponed our wedding once due to my pregnancy, so we took it. Also, I didn't think my ex would go bonkers over it because when he got married to his mistress, he took our girls out of the state for 2 weeks because he wanted a destination wedding, and I checked with him numerous times before making the decision. He was fine with it until 2 weeks before the wedding. I have no idea why he was acting like it, and I know people have called me a bad mother for not noticing it earlier. I have no excuse for that. I know I have been consumed so much in my own world that I didn't thoroughly check with my girls. My kids shouldn't feel like them sharing their problems will hamper my life because their problem is my problem. I said sorry to both Emily and Gabby for it. They were kind enough to forgive me, but I will always have this guilt that I didn't see at first. Now on to the next story. Story 12. Teen daughter told me my wife was cheating, so I kicked her out and divorced her. A year later, I found my daughter's diary where she admitted she made it all up to get her mom back. I, 43M, was married to my wife, Lara, 31F, for 6 years. I also had a kid from my previous marriage, Sarah, 15F. It was really hard for me to date and get to know women after me and my daughter's mother divorced due to infidelity issues regarding the fact I had a kid and trust issues. So meeting Lara was really a blessing. We met at an aquarium where I was with my daughter and she with her niece. That day, I kept noticing her and how she was treating the kid, and it brought a smile to my face. The next time I met her was a year later at the said niece's birthday. It turned out that Sarah and the niece were in the same class, and seeing her again was a pleasant surprise. It was like fate. I mustered up my courage to speak to her and finally talk to her. She was great company, and she spoke really well, and it made me like her more. Since it's been 3 years since my divorce, I shot my shot with her and decided to take her out for a coffee, and next thing I know, we've been married for 6 years. Laura has been an amazing wife and a mother. She treated Sarah well, and since her mother was not in the picture, she quit her job and took the responsibility to take care of her full-time. She even decided to wait to have kids until Sarah was a little older. She didn't want her to feel left out and was scared that Sarah wouldn't get enough attention. She taught Sarah multiple languages and shared her culture with her. Her relatives are amazing with her and treat Sarah no less than a biological daughter of Laura. She even shared her recipes and baked goods with my family, and everyone looks forward to holidays whenever Laura hosts them. She and my mom have developed a great relationship. My friends and family tell me that I won the lottery with her, and it really feels like it. Even when Sarah's bio mom showed up after abandoning her own daughter for 9 years, she was the one who encouraged me to let Sarah connect with her and let her be in my daughter's life. She tried her best to help Sarah get to know her mother and even built a friendship with Anna, Sarah's mother. However, earlier last year, around May, I noticed that my daughter was distancing herself from Laura. This was weird as my daughter never had any fallout in her relationship with Laura, as most teenagers do with their mom. Even Laura noticed and cried about it multiple times. So one night, I decided to talk to my daughter and ask her what was going on. Sarah told me that she found out Laura was having an affair with someone, and she's hurt that Laura betrayed her and me. Hearing that felt like someone was crushing my heart, and the hurt on my daughter's face intensified it. I went straight to my room and woke Laura up and yelled some hurtful things at her. I'm not proud of how I handled the situation, and I agree I could have done better. However, the only thing I could think about was how hurt my daughter was. I kicked her out that night, and that was the last conversation we had without a lawyer present. Around November, our divorce was finalized, and I moved on with my life. I did do some things I regret to Laura, so I didn't want to make it hard for her and just wanted to be done with her, so there was no revenge and petty actions involved. I did let my family know the real reason, and they were disappointed, to say the least. My daughter also doesn't have a relationship with Laura, and we cut contact with her family and threatened legal action if they tried to meet with us. I didn't want anything to do with her. During August, I decided to surprise my daughter with a trip to celebrate her 16th birthday. Since I was dealing with the divorce last year, I wasn't able to really celebrate with her, so I decided to pack her bag and take her straight to the airport from her sleepover with friends. I asked my younger sister to help me with packing Sarah's clothes. While she was packing, I saw a notebook on her nightstand with a Polaroid of her and Laura peeking. Curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it to find out it was her diary. This might have been wrong of me to go through my daughter's diary, but I went through it, and I have not been well ever since. She wrote about how she lied about Laura having an affair, and how she even made evidence to make me believe her if I questioned her. She wanted me and her mother to be together, be a family, and kick Laura out of the picture. However, after Laura left, she is no longer in her life. She's regretting it. Felt like my heart broke for the second time. I started crying, and I haven't even cried when Laura and I divorced. My sister noticed me, and I asked her to leave and keep it a secret from everyone. She asked what happened, and I showed her the diary. She was shocked but told me that she respects my decision and vowed to keep her mouth shut. I drank the night away and just have been in automotive mode like a robot from work to home, and drank till I blacked out, and returned to work with a raging hangover. My daughter has noticed it, but I told her it was just a stressful time at work. But last Sunday, she blew up at me, saying that she noticed that I've been different since Laura left us, and told me if I wanted to stay with a cheating whore, I was more than welcome to abandon her. That did hurt like hell, but I just left to my room and laid on the bed and cried the night away. It has been around 2 weeks since I found out about it, but I haven't said anything to my daughter. I want to bring my emotions under control before saying anything I'd regret, and I don't want to repeat the mistake of taking actions while I'm hurting. And quite frankly, now that I'm thinking with a sober mind, I'm not really sure how to confront my daughter. I need the closure, and I don't think I can just act like nothing happened. I am quite ashamed to say so, but I want my Lara back. So, Reddit, thank you for taking your time to read, and I hope you can help me with this, and please be kind. Update. First of all, thank you all for the advice. I did check the comments frequently yesterday but was not able to reply as I was overwhelmed. A lot of you have been asking how the confrontation with Lara went. It wasn't as excessive as a lot of you were assuming. I woke her up and asked her why she cheated on me. She asked me what I was talking about. I just said that I don't want her in my house anymore and she needs to leave because I can no longer bear to look at her face, that she was the least person I would expect to betray me. She looked at me shocked and just started crying, and she didn't say anything else. She called her cousin to come get her, and she just left, and before she did, she said that she swears that she never cheated on me and she would have never even thought to. That was the last time we saw each other. I blocked her and never contacted her directly, and she didn't. Now that I think about it, I think the way I treated her hurt her too much. She grew up in a conservative family, so she never dated nor had any relationships as she was expected to get an arranged marriage. So I really was the first one after her first arranged marriage broke up. It's not my place to say why it ended, but it wasn't her fault. And about the evidence, she just had some screenshots of chats that I never saw. I believed Sarah without a doubt because she was my daughter. I'm not telling this to defend Sarah or anything but to give a perspective on why I acted the way I did. When I was with Anna, my younger sister actually told me that she knew Anna was cheating on me as she saw her in the apartment during a night out. When I confronted Anna, she gaslighted me, and I wrote an apology letter to her and the apartment manager at my workplace because that was the only way she would forgive me. However, she left me and Sarah when we were spending holidays with my parents, stole some valuables from my parents' house and our apartment, and drained our savings account in which I had my inheritance and college fund to buy us a new house. She basically left me and Sarah broke and heartbroken. I always had my regrets about not believing my sister because she didn't have any evidence, so it seems that my poor judgment cost me my wife. I forgot to mention in the last post, but after the fight me and Sarah had, she's currently with her mother. As for the diary, she brought it over to her mother's house, but my sister had taken some pictures at the time as I was not in a great headspace. And for the writing, I'm sure it's her handwriting as she and Lara have quite the same handwriting. I also saw the question about whether my daughter went to therapy. When Anna came back, she didn't, as Anna didn't want to send her to a shrink, and now that I think about it, it was stupid of me, but I just wanted to give Anna a chance to be a mother, I guess. Lara didn't push for it as Anna threw quite the tantrum but brought Sarah a diary so that she can write what she can't say to others. Also, my daughter has never done anything like this before, and the biggest lie she has ever said was about not cheating on an exam but later cried and confessed to it. I really don't have any idea why Sarah would do it, and I'm not sure if Anna had a hand in it. I don't have a solid plan, but I think I'll start by sending Sarah to therapy after confronting her about the affair. I haven't yet decided what to do with Lara. It hurts to even think about her, and I keep remembering about how I vowed to be there for her, but I never was able to. Also, I never abused Lara, but considering what she had done for me and Sarah, I don't think it was fair to her for me to raise my voice at her. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.